Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1430 of the War News stream. And we have some more big news yet again tonight. We've seen that Ukraine launched long-range strikes today on Russian targets, all the way as far as 550 kilometers away from the border. We've also seen that airlines have begun canceling flights near Iran and the entirety of the Middle East. And also another big one, Russian shadow tankers, at least 2 of them, have been lost near Spain today in a very big loss. And we have big news on all those topics and more. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world as significant developments have emerged from the Middle East, Eastern Europe, the areas of Western Europe, the Americas, as well as a little bit of news also coming out of East Asia on ongoing U.S. defense developments within the area. Suffice it to say, tonight is a fairly busy night in terms of the amount of news that we have, and we have heard major developments inside of the Middle East as the Islamic Republic of Iran has declared today that any attempt at a U.S. attack on the country will result in a complete and total war against not only the United States, but the entire region, meaning that the Iranians will be conducting attacks on every single country in the Middle East that is not the Islamic Republic of Iran, meaning that they will be largely conducting and waging a total war against the entirety of the region, which once again will bode them quite poorly. Still, we have heard the U.S. forces are moving in larger numbers, as around 36 F-15E Strike Eagles are currently being seen at the Muwafaq Air Force Base in the area east of Amman, Jordan, while at the same time we are now hearing what may be some form of an attempted deception by U.S. mainstream news outlets, as they have now stated that the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, which was expected to arrive within 24 hours into CENTCOM's area of responsibility last night, is now only going to be arriving in the middle of next week, which is highly unlikely considering that when it turned off its AIS transponder, it was just south of Sri Lanka and making all available speed into the Arabian Sea, meaning that it would be arriving within at least the next 36 hours at that point, meaning that it's well within theater right now, based off of the last AIS transponder pings that we got on the map. Additionally, we also saw that KLM and other major airlines are beginning to divert or completely cancel flights throughout the entirety of the Middle East within the next coming days, with KLM picking up all of their company staff out of the United Arab Emirates and Qatar, and other companies like Lufthansa completely suspending flights tomorrow to the State of Israel. We've also seen that airspace is starting to become a little bit thinner, at least over the states of Israel and others, as it does appear that the U.S. and Israel are still trying to largely build up in anticipation for their strikes on the Islamic Republic of Iran. Additionally, while all of those major developments are going on, the situation in Syria is still remaining incredibly tense, with the United States Armed Forces, the very little left in the area, attempting to transport the thousands of ISIS prisoners that are currently, but will not be for long, under SDF control into Iraq to avoid seeing them released by Jelani's men into the wild to join the ranks of ISIS once more within the territory of Syria. Additionally, the Syrian Democratic Forces are trying to make a last-ditch stand south of the city of Al-Hasaka against advancing al-Jelani regime forces, with heavy fighting stated to be happening within the area. Although we do not have any video and picture evidence of this occurrence, we do have video and picture statements to show otherwise. We have also been able to see that inside the area of the Western Mediterranean, there has been an incredibly questionable occurrence today, as two Russian shadow tankers, or alleged shadow tankers, are currently adrift within the Mediterranean, apparently abandoned and without power. We do not know why, but this area is incredibly close to the seizure of the Grinch oil tanker, which was seized near to French waters just yesterday by the French Navy, and it is believed that at the moment, either the Ukrainians have attacked successfully these oil tankers, and that is why they are adrift, or that the French Navy may have just boarded and seized two additional oil tankers within the area at this moment. We've also seen that more U.S. flights are being conducted into the Middle East in preparations to prepare for even larger amounts of ground-based air defense fire in the event of the Iranians conduct a counterattack. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation has also seen a major occurrence today within the Northern Fleet headquarters at Murmansk, as the power has completely gone out within the city, which may also affect the operational capabilities of the naval port and facility that operates the Northern Fleet out of Russia's Murmansk city area. We've also seen the Ukrainian deep strikes have hit a Penza oil depot today, while also inside of Moscow, two Ukrainian officers have been charged in absentia for damage to Russian military equipment in the war in Ukraine, particularly the sinking of the Moskva, and the Russians are trying to get the full value back from those Ukrainian soldiers for the sinking of those ships. I don't think they're going to be getting that one anytime soon.
They're still salty about losing to Moscow. That's crazy. That's haunting them for years at this point.
And you know what, I just as an aside before I get through the rest of our summary, folks, what's funny about that is that the Russians claim that the Moskva and another vessel that was hit by Ukrainian anti-ship missile batteries were supposedly, according to the Russians, not involved in wartime activities, although the Moskva was the ship that fired on Snake Island literally in hour one of the war in Ukraine. So a little bit odd on that one. I don't really think that one's going to be standing up too well to the test of time. Additionally, we also saw that Poland will apparently be working with Palantir to deploy a drone shield around the entirety of their country. We have also seen that the Ukrainian armed forces have inflicted significant losses onto the Russian Federation's armed forces throughout the day, and the Russian Federation has taken little to absolutely no ground in the past 24 hours, although they've suffered about 1,100 men wounded and killed. The United States of America, all the way over in the area of the Western Pacific, is currently working on rebuilding the famous World War II base of the Tinian Island Airfield, and will be rebuilding it to a modern standard capable of housing 250 aircraft of the United States Air Force, the United States Marine Corps, and other branches that may use the Tinian Island as a base of operations and a future conflict against the People's Republic of China. We have a humongous amount of news to cover today, and these are just some of the larger pieces of news. This isn't even covering all of the smaller details that we have today, like the U.S. potentially blockading Cuba, the United States has finally blown up another alleged drug boat, and we've also seen other major developments throughout the area, including some major news about Diego Garcia in the British Indian Ocean territory. We are going to be getting through each and every single bit of this news today, starting with our largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the night. But of course, folks, as tradition dictates here on the channel, we will be starting with that largest story, and then working our way on down into the smaller ones, which means that we are immediately going to be moving into the area of the Middle East. As war is starting to loom against the Islamic Republic of Iran, with large U.S. force deployments present within the area, the Iranian government has now started to become largely a cornered animal, and is starting to lash out and threaten basically every country within the region with strikes if the United States attempts to hit the Islamic Republic of Iran with any form of an attack. According to official statements today, the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, has had the Friday prayers canceled and did not appear, which is showing that at the moment some sort of emergency wartime preparations are being made, and due to security situations, or generally developing security situations that the Iranians might be foreseeing, they do not want Khamenei to be out in the public in the midst of the Iranian citizenry, just in case of airstrikes were to commence right now at this night. Additionally, we've also been able to hear that the Iranian government did give that threat of reprisal, stating that Iran will threaten any attack on it as all-out war and respond in the hardest way possible. This also went on to explain that they would attack literally every country within the area for the larger part, including the following nations: the Republic of Turkey, the Syrian Interim Government and the Syrian Democratic Forces, the Republic of Iraq, the Kingdom of Kuwait, the Kingdom of Jordan, the State of Israel, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Saudi-backed Yemeni factions inside of Yemen, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Bahrain. The only country that did not make the list was Lebanon, and that's because Lebanon is largely run by Hezbollah forces, which are funded and operated by the Islamic Republic of Iran, meaning that they generally are the only ones to get an exception. But the Iranians are threatening to throw a sugar or a bottle rocket or a sugar rocket at basically everyone in the area if the United States attempts to attack them at the moment. And that was also made clear yesterday through an IRGC propaganda video, but an official statement was made today by a senior Iranian official, once again doubling down on the claim and making it incredibly clear that the Islamic Republic of Iran intends to lash out on every single nation within the area if the United States conducts an attack. This also seems to be something that is starting to become a very pressing concern for the Islamic Republic of Iran, given the fact that the USS Abraham Lincoln is supposed to have arrived within CENTCOM's area of responsibility today. We do know that at the moment, the USS Abraham Lincoln was expected to arrive somewhere within the very southeasterly area of CENTCOM's area of responsibility within the Arabian Sea around the early morning hours of today, meaning that the USS Abraham Lincoln has most likely been in the area of responsibility for a little over a half day at this point. However, we have seen that while this is generally understood to be the case by most open source intelligence groups, considering that we saw the USS Abraham Lincoln on satellite photography making its way through the Strait of Malacca several days ago, and not only that, also transiting through the Indian Ocean with its AIS transponder on, clearly pinging the location of the vessel, that means that it was incredibly close to the entering CENTCOM's area of responsibility yesterday when its AIS transponder was turned off. However, many mainstream news outlets within the United States of America are saying that the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is not in the CENTCOM area yet, and as a matter of fact, the Department of Defense is claiming that the USS Abraham Lincoln will only arrive into the area in the middle of next week, although it was literally only about 300 miles away as of yesterday from entering CENTCOM's area of responsibility.
Yeah, that's really strange because, like you're saying, it was already scheduled to arrive. It was supposed to arrive today or possibly even maybe tomorrow, but not the middle of next week, though. That's way off schedule. Even if it was slightly delayed, that's off schedule by a lot. So that seems really suspect right there. That right there seems like it could be one of those misdirection attempts, perhaps. And it might work on Iran, actually, because Iran doesn't have any ability to actually verify that claim. They have to send out a drone to manually go look in the water to see if it's actually out there, and they don't know exactly where to look. So they don't have satellite technology like we have it. So it might actually work, this attempt at misdirection, if it is that indeed the case.
It might work if they haven't been paying attention, and they might not be paying necessarily a great deal of attention, and they also might believe those claims because, funnily enough, folks, major media outlets within the United States of America, like Fox News, which were one of the outlets that made this claim today, are actually listened to by a large amount of foreign governments, almost as a form of pseudo-intelligence gathering, at least by those nations. So they may actually take this at face value, but I'm highly doubting it. And also, this attempt at a ruse may be uncovered by the Iranians if the People's Republic of China provides them with satellite intelligence that shows the exact position of the Abraham Lincoln, which is highly likely at this moment well within the Arabian Sea and well within CENTCOM's area of responsibility. So this largely depends on whether or not the Chinese are providing any significant intelligence to Iran, and if this is some form of deception that the United States is trying to implement right now, we may have also been able to get some form of credible intelligence or information that we do not know of in the public, that the Chinese are not willing to provide high-level satellite photography intelligence to the Iranians, and therefore this ruse may have a higher chance of success once it's spread in a larger form by the mainstream news outlets, which are disseminating this information at the moment. However, while
wait a second. Enforcer, real quick, we have a little piece of breaking news here. We're seeing a very large deployment of tankers right now out of Qatar. Go take a look at Flight Radar 24 real quick. It appears to be a pretty large one, actually. I'm not really sure where they're going, but let's take a look and see what we can spot from the ADS-B information.
All right, so let's take a... Oh, sorry, I keep on clicking on the airports there. I'm trying to click on the aircraft. So we have, at the moment, folks, some KC-135 Stratotankers. Unfortunately, it does not appear that we are able to say that they have any call signs. As a matter of fact, none of them have call signs. But we can see the registration numbers listed here on Flight Radar 24. And from what we can tell, all of them are flying actually a analogous path to each other, an identical pathway to each other that seems to be heading further on and west into Saudi Arabia. Right now, folks, just to let y'all know, it is the break of dawn inside the Middle East. You can actually see right here, this little twilight zone area on the map is actually showing that the sun is just starting to rise over the region, meaning that these aircraft are flying with the sun behind their backs as they're flying west into Saudi Arabia at the moment. I would have to say this is incredibly interesting. I have to tell y'all, though, folks, that the chance of strikes being conducted right now on Iran are fairly unlikely, considering that the United States prefers to conduct attacks, especially by air, as an opening action of a conflict in the midst of night, considering that it's much more difficult to identify or spot aircraft, considering that you cannot physically look up into the sky and see jet contrails in the middle of the night as easily as you would in the daytime. So I think, Matthew, go ahead.
You know what I think this might be, because one thing we actually didn't report on this the other day because it was kind of it was not really big news to report on, but the aircraft that had already evacuated from Qatar, the Al Udeid Air Base, the ones that had evacuated previously had actually returned back to the air base about 24 to 48 hours ago. So this looks like another line of evacuation aircraft that's leaving Qatar's air base to get out of the area in case Iran retaliates. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like another evacuation in the span of just a few days. They're doing it for a second time, it looks like, which could indicate that maybe strikes are around the corner.
I would agree. That's actually what I was about to say. I would say, folks, that the chance that this is a preparation to start refueling aircraft that are loitering right now for strikes is highly unlikely, considering that the window to conduct strikes, which would be about 1 to 3 a.m. local time in their time in the Middle East, has generally passed at this moment and is now the break of dawn. We're not going to be seeing any attacks conducted by U.S. Air Forces at the moment on Iran. So these are most likely more evacuation flights that are being conducted, and it's highly likely that these aircraft may be transiting entirely out of the CENTCOM area of responsibility for a temporary time, maybe even relocating into Turkey, which technically I believe is under EUCOM's area of responsibility, if I'm not mistaken, because most of the forces there fall under the command of U.S. Army Europe and Africa, at least on the ground forces side, or generally I believe it's the 8th Air Force for the United States Air Force, which is also based in EUCOM. So at the moment it appears that these are more evacuation flights, giving us an idea. Actually, to be entirely honest with y'all, folks, this might be quite telling, because they're conducting another evacuation flight. The first one may have been a fake out to make the Iranians think an attack was coming soon. This one is happening quite literally on Friday, well, actually Saturday morning over there, meaning that this could be allowing for attacks to be conducted on Saturday night this weekend. Once again, though, that's a huge jump, and we don't know if the U.S. leadership is ready or apt enough to conduct a strike, and if the foreign policy situation and diplomatic developments in the area would be conducive to some form of a strike at the moment, but we'll have to try and get more information on that as time goes by, or just wait and see if strikes happen tomorrow, because there's also a very good chance that strikes might not happen this weekend at all. They might happen next weekend, or they might happen on another weekend well off into the future. But there is a significant flight of these tankers, and that we can confirm without question. However, a lot of people are talking at the moment about that aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, and its carrier strike group, which was supposed to enter the area today, but according to some mainstream news outlets, it's not even expected to arrive within the area of responsibility until the middle of next week. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so is it a fake out? That's the question. Because the carrier was already scheduled to arrive. It was supposed to be there by now. And usually they're not this late. Like they're not supposed to arrive like 3 or 4 days after they're scheduled to arrive. That's not normal. So many people believe it is misdirection and it's already there. But what do you think in the audience? 62% said yes, the carrier is already in the area near Iran, while 15% said no, the carrier actually is not there yet. And 13% said I'm 50-50 on the claim. And I am definitely with the 62%. This is a classic textbook maneuver of misdirection, and we're not violating OPSEC by saying that. This is honestly kind of a bit of a pitiful attempt at a misdirection because it was clear as a bell up until today that the carrier was going to be there. So the good news is Iran will never know for certain until it's too late because they don't have satellite technology to actually detect the carrier off their coast. So unless they get lucky and send out one of their cheap, nasty surveillance drones and somehow find it out of the wide open ocean, then they're not going to see it. So the carrier's probably there. They're probably getting ready, final preparations for strikes, and also mainly getting ready to defend our allies in the region. That's mainly what the carrier is there for, and I think they're about to happen soon. But I don't want to make any concrete predictions, though, because it's kind of hard to do that these days with the current environment we're in. So I'm going to say it seems imminent, but we don't know when. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the carrier is definitely there. I would have to agree with Enforcer Matt. This is a very poor attempt at deception, considering that anybody who has access to marinetraffic.com could literally watch the aircraft carrier, and we had corroboration of its location by satellite photography provided by public photography given by Chinese satellites, that it was transiting the Strait of Malacca at the same time it was seen on AIS transponder, and it turned off its transponder just south of Sri Lanka. It was literally only 300 miles away from entering CENTCOM at that point, which made it kind of hovering around the 36-hour to 24-hour area that it was going to arrive. And that was 36 hours ago, meaning that it's been well within CENTCOM's area of responsibility for several hours at a minimum, or maybe even half the day at this point, if we're taking that as a rough approximation. So this is not a good attempt at deception at all by the U.S. government. This is not as good. I would say that this isn't as masterfully done as the last deception attempt, which was conducted during Operation Midnight Hammer, where they had the entire world believing that the B-2 bomber strikes were actually being conducted over the Pacific, with them flying past Hawaii, down through the area of Southeast Asia, to Diego Garcia, and then directly into Iran, conducting the bombing and then flying back, when the entire time the attack was actually coming across the Atlantic instead. This isn't a similar form of deception that is that easily done and said, at least at this point, and it appears that the USS Abraham Lincoln is well within the area. I also want to make sure to clarify something that I think some people are getting confused on, because for some reason some people have been very vehement, as a matter of fact quite angry about the fact that the Abraham Lincoln is getting a lot of attention, and some people are saying that it's the USS George Washington that's far more important for strikes on Iran. I hate to be the bearer of bad news to those folks, but the USS George Washington is currently in Japan at the moment, and it is nowhere inside of CENTCOM's area of responsibility or currently transiting within that area. The USS George Washington is permanently connected to Indo-PACOM and has been stationed since 2008 in Yokosuka, Japan, basically on permanent rotation in the Indo-PACOM area of responsibility as a direct deterrent and counter to North Korea's nuclearization and their actions as a rogue nuclear state. So the USS George Washington will not be present for any actions and is not present currently in CENTCOM's area of responsibility for any actions against Iran. The only carrier groups that are going to be involved in this operation will be the USS Abraham Lincoln, already in theater from what we would assume, and the USS George H.W. Bush, which is currently making available steam across the North Atlantic to make it to the Strait of Gibraltar and then on into the Eastern Mediterranean, but it's not expected to be in CENTCOM's AOR until about next week. That aircraft carrier actually will most likely be there sometime in the latter part of next week, but the Abraham Lincoln is already there right now. We also were able to see the current U.S. force disposition provided by Ian Ellis on Twitter. Huge shout out to him once again. And republished by Conflict Radar. And here is the current force disposition that we would understand right now that is within the area. Also, I would like for y'all to note, once again, just to corroborate this here, that the USS Abraham Lincoln, when it turned off its AIS transponder, which is where Ian Ellis pinged it at its last location, had literally just rounded India past Sri Lanka and quite literally was only a few hundred miles away from the CENTCOM AOR. So it is in CENTCOM at this point. It is not going to be hanging out around India for an entire week before it just steams on in, considering it's only 200 miles away. Right now, we understand the USS Abraham Lincoln has a very lean escort of 3 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, including the USS Frank E. Peterson, the USS Spruance, as well as the USS Michael Murphy. On board the USS Abraham Lincoln, they have the following air squadrons: the Black Knights, which use the F-35C, the Vigilantes, which use the FA-18 Super Hornet, the Wizards, which also use the EA-18G Prowlers, the Top Hatters, which also use the Super Hornet, the Titans, which are a special transport group which operates the MV-20 or the CMV-22 Ospreys. They also have the Chargers, which operate MH-60 Seahawks, along with the Raptors, which also operate the MH-60 Seahawks. They also have the Wallbangers, which operate the E-2 Hawkeyes, and the Black Aces, which also once again operate FA-18 Super Hornets. A fairly decent multi-role capacity available on the carrier, and right now the Abraham Lincoln, along with its escorts, has available around 300 SM-2 or SM-3 surface-to-air missiles to provide air cover within that area of the Arabian Sea. Additionally, there are other U.S. naval ships that are within the area at the moment, including the USS Roosevelt, which is another Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer within the Eastern Mediterranean, along with the USS Misher, the USS McFall, the USS Oscar Austin, the USS Buckley, the USS Paul Ignatius, and also the nuclear attack submarines, USS South Dakota, and the USS Georgia. The USS Georgia is actually an SSGN, not a nuclear attack submarine. Additionally, we also know that as far as the Air Force's assets within the area, there are 2 F-35 squadrons, 3 F-15E squadrons, an F-16 squadron, if I'm not mistaken, 1 A-10 squadron. Most of these are operated out of Jordan or the surrounding area, along with a huge amount of strategic airlift aircraft which have been flying in and out of the area over a continuous basis, including P-8 Poseidons, C-17s, KC-135s, KC-46s, C-130 Hercules, and also the usual drone accompaniments that we have been seeing, including MQ-4 Tritons, which conduct usual patrols in the area of the Persian Gulf. The Coast Guard also has about 6 cutters within the area as well. These are of incredibly small size and generally wouldn't be used for anything other than law enforcement activity within the Persian Gulf or the surrounding areas. And we also understand that there are some littoral combat ships, including the USS Tulsa, the USS Canberra, the USS Santa Barbara, as well as a command ship, the USS Mount Whitney, the only one in the Navy, and a couple of fleet auxiliaries as well for resupply. So, in short, there is a fairly large amount of grouping of forces within the area at the moment. Some of these naval assets, by the way, including 3 of the Arleigh Burkes, the command vessel, and also some of the oilers and auxiliaries, are actually technically within EUCOM's area of responsibility in the Mediterranean, but are available and on call for action in CENTCOM's area of responsibility at the moment. So we are seeing that it is a huge force deployment at the moment, and it will only become larger once the George H.W. Bush arrives within the area in the Eastern Mediterranean at the latter part of next week.
One interesting thing here. This is something I've been seeing people discuss all day long, and it's a really good question because we're not really sure exactly how these strikes are going to go. Many people are wondering, when the U.S. finally does start doing these airstrikes, what are they going for? And there's 2 major buckets that it could fall in right now that I'm currently seeing, and also the enforcer will let us know what he thinks in just a second. But we're, of course, seeing perhaps a round 2 of the strikes on the Iranian nuclear sites. We did see that Pickaxe Mountain, which is a very prominent site, which the Iranians are rebuilding and also fortifying, where they develop nuclear weapons technology. That facility there is apparently at the top of the list for strikes. So that's one of them that we're hearing about. There's also, of course, many other ones like the Isfahan facility. There's plenty of others that were hit previously that might get hit again. But generally speaking, I think they might hit the nuclear sites, which would require bunker busters. They would need, of course, probably the B-2 bombers to come back in again for that, because you have to reach really deep down in the ground to actually do the damage that's required to destroy those facilities. So that's one part of it. But the other part is, I think they're going to be going for striking the IRGC targets, specifically the forces that are being used to put down the protesters. They're going to try to hit probably armories. They're going to try to hit barracks, perhaps. I think that's what they're going to go for, generally speaking. So it'll probably be 2-pronged between those 2 different things there, I would imagine, but that's my guess. But Enforcer, what is your guess of the target list that we're probably going to see?
I would have a feeling that you're probably correct that Pickaxe Mountain and other nuclear facilities that were uncovered after Midnight Hammer or were generally disclosed to the public after Midnight Hammer will probably be in the next round of strikes that we'll be seeing conducted here soon. These will require, folks, the use of B-2 Spirits operating the GBU-57 MOPS, also called the Massive Ordnance Penetrators, to be able to try and even reach the facilities that are deeply embedded inside of these mountains, several hundred feet below the mountain's actual surface. This also means that we will also maybe possibly see some special forces operations on the ground if necessary to be able to cause even further damage to the facilities if it's believed that they are too far underground for even the mops to be able to successfully hit them and mop them up, pun intended. Additionally, I also believe that in these forms of strikes that we'll be seeing right now, there's a wide variety of what could be done, but I also want y'all to note that at least in terms of conventional forces that we have in the area, there is a huge amount of multi-role air-to-ground fighters that we have within the area. And I'm really emphasizing the air-to-ground part of their multi-role capacity because F-15Es are prioritized in their design for generally air-to-ground operations, hence the reason for a weapons operator and a second pilot technically on the aircraft to be able to operate the air-to-ground weaponry. So there is a high likelihood that tactical level air operations will be conducted over Iran, attempting to strike barracks, governmental facilities, and headquarters, and possibly also cause significant damage to central governmental apparatus within the area of the city of Tehran. Once central government headquarters are hit within Tehran, there will be a great deal of instability, lack of communication, and coordination throughout the country, which could be further exploited by U.S. armed forces, as they'll be able to pick off these forces in detail, which is pretty much a military term, meaning that everyone's been isolated and you're able to deal with them one at a time, and generally weaken or completely destroy the governmental apparatus that the Khomeini regime currently uses inside of Iran, which is a decent likelihood. I would also say that there's probably going to be some fairly high priority targets hit in other avenues as well that we haven't seen so far, especially those that are involved in missile production. Missile production is something that we haven't really seen hit before in any major way, and while some minor targets were hit in those development programs in Midnight Hammer, we've never seen any IRBM or ICBM production facilities in Iran directly hit either by the Israelis or even by the United States. We did see some storage sites hit, but no factories. The United States might be going after those factories because we do know that the Iranians are getting very close to mass producing ICBMs capable of reaching and hitting the United States of America, and while we may also be going once again for their rocketry research abilities, we may also be going for their production abilities as well, stopping them from really making any progress either on further developing and finishing already made designs or developing even further more effective designs that could hit and target the United States. So I have a feeling that that would be the likely targets that we could see hit. It might be a wildly wide variety, or we may see that a lot like the Venezuela operations and its very surgical strikes within Tehran itself. Although I'd also have to say that that would be geographically challenging due to the extreme terrain of Iran and the larger mountain ranges. And not only that, Tehran is also pretty far inside of Iran, 315 miles from the Iraqi border, meaning that helicopters would not be able to reach Tehran for surgical extractions of high-level officials like Khomeini or others. And from the area of the Persian Gulf, they are actually a whopping 600 miles away from the very border of Iran on the Persian Gulf, meaning that any sort of helicopter extractions would not be possible in this sort of a military operation like we saw in Caracas. So with that in mind,
you gotta imagine, for example, if I was in charge and I was put in charge of trying to plan the situation with Iran, the one thing I would make sure that we hit as the United States, we got to take care of that nuclear problem because we really didn't finish the job properly the last time we struck with the B-2s. So it's time to finish the job with the nuclear situation. So the B-2s have to go back in. They have to bring in the bunker busters and hit those sites, especially Pickaxe Mountain, which is a pretty prominent one that's currently at the top of the list. That's priority number one. Priority number two, we need to redirect the IRGC's attention away from the protesters because right now, that's the only way the Ayatollah has regained control is because he has literally the entire country's military force focused on putting down civilians so that way they can't rise up and overthrow his regime. So we need to redirect attention away from the protesters and civilians and to the defense of the country of Iran. So that way the protesters will have a fighting chance to get back out in the streets and cause chaos. And hopefully that'll be just enough to make the Iranian regime start crumbling, at least in theory. So there's still one major problem though. the Iranian people are still not armed with weapons. That's still a major problem. I'm really not sure how the West is planning on solving that issue, because if the West is hitting IRGC sites, that is typically where the civilians would find armaments, for example, weapons and rifles. And if those have been struck with bombs, obviously they're going to get destroyed. So I'm not sure how the West is planning on arming the populace. That's a big question mark right now. And that's something that has to be addressed, because if the Iranian government still has weapons and the protesters are still unarmed, then they don't really stand a chance against the IRGC, even with their attention being redirected. So that's a question mark. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would say that if I was the one in command of these strikes, say I was the Secretary of Defense right now, I would say that the best sort of an action that could be taken is to conduct airstrikes on top officials within the IRGC and the besiege, and to also hit key headquarters, especially those of the provincial level throughout the entirety of the country, which is basically going to send everyone else into hiding. Because once the top officials are taken out in airstrikes, that means that the next officials below them in status have now become those top officials as well. That means that they're going to be scared of being next, because crazily enough, all these people always talk every day about being martyred. None of them actually want to die for their cause. So they're all going to go running for the hills and try and disappear. That also means that all the guys under them are going to be basically without commanders, because nobody's going to want to take the top positions once the guys above them are taken out, meaning that they're also going to be scattering for the hillsides as well. And that completely takes the pressure off of any of the protesters left alive on the ground, because all of these IRGC guys are not going to be wanting to crowd up in large groups anywhere for that matter, much less at an IRGC headquarters, or much less near to even protesters, because they're probably going to believe that they would be next for a U.S. airstrike, meaning that the pressure on the actual protesters would basically disappear and evaporate at that point. Another thing that would be wildly important is to hit and destroy the military leadership capabilities and also air defense and air capabilities of Iran in the opening salvo. The Iranian Air Force and Iranian ground air defense forces need to be completely destroyed through suppression of enemy air defense operations, and also by airfield airstrikes to be able to knock out the aircraft and crater their runways, so that way if their aircraft survive, they cannot get any into the sky to threaten the U.S. The U.S. needs to gain absolute air supremacy at the very opening of this conflict. It wouldn't be bad if we didn't. It would just take a little bit longer to see things get into place and for all the pieces to fall in line, but it would be ideal if we could achieve complete air supremacy from the opening of this conflict if necessary.
That shouldn't be that hard, because you remember last time that Iran got struck during the 12-day war, it didn't take Israel too long to have air supremacy. Like they had air supremacy, I think within, what was it, like the opening days? I think it was like the first couple of days they had air supremacy for the most part. They were flying their jets straight into Iran and firing at stuff, at least based on my recollection of it.
The Israelis generally were. We also think the Israelis were firing missiles from inside of northern Iraq through Iran. And, of course, Russian air defense sucks, which is what the Iranians have, so they didn't see it until it hit. But sometimes we think that there may have been some F-35s that actually flew all the way over to Tehran, hovered over it, and then just started dropping JDAMs on targets below. So there is a chance that may have happened. We're just not entirely sure, because the Israelis have never confirmed if their aircraft actually entered Iranian airspace to conduct airstrikes. They always have officially stated, at least at the moment, that they were within northern Iraq using standoff weapons. So taking that for what it is, they were able to gain air superiority, but they didn't have air supremacy to where they believed that it would be safe to conduct air operations over Iran. But for our purposes, for the United States and its future operations right now, it would be vital to get air supremacy, not air superiority, to where U.S. aircraft could operate unabated over the entirety of Iran if necessary, and even allow for in-air refueling operations to be conducted over Iran if that was also needed to extend the loiter time of these aircraft. So I would say that probably would be something that was close to what happened last time, because the Israelis really did give a pretty big hit to the Iranian Air Force, but I think that the United States needs to give a death blow to the Iranian Air Force this time around to see that they cannot pose even a semblance of a threat in the skies and allow for any form of air-to-ground operations to commence afterwards.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Also, by the way, I saw some people today mentioning as well that there's UK aircraft and fighter jets that have arrived in the region as well. There's been basically coalition fighter jets showing up left and right. I don't think those are going to participate in strikes on Iran. I think they're there primarily for defensive purposes, to protect the skies of Jordan, Israel, etc., and all of our bases in the region. That's probably why those aircraft are there from the UK. They're probably not going to be offensive operators in the upcoming fight. So I wouldn't expect that. Oh, and also, by the way, they could be there over Syria because that situation is still going on. They could be planning to do airstrikes inside of Syria to deal with that ISIS situation that's currently popping up. So I doubt they're going to be participating. But unfortunately, what do you think? Is it going to be a coalition attack on Iran or just likely Israel and the United States?
Highly unlikely, because right now the British and the United States relations are somewhat strained over comments that the president made about the British and their involvement in U.S. interests in prior years. So just due to that spat alone, I have a feeling that there's not really a lot of diplomatic follow-through or diplomatic goodwill on the British end to follow along in a coalition operation against Iran. And also in the last military operations that we saw against Iran, there was no British involvement directly against Iran in any engagement, either in the 12-Day War or Midnight Hammer. So I would believe that they're probably not going to be involved, and their air presence there is simply for air defense purposes over Jordan and Qatar, which they have significant diplomatic and economic relations with.
I'd imagine so. And also, by the way, before we get to our next poll, could we do a quick scan on Flight Radar real quick and see exactly where were those tankers going? Are we getting a sharper idea of exactly where they're evacuating to?
So currently they're beelining it towards Medina at the moment. They haven't really traveled far, actually, since the beginning of our stream. The first time we saw them, the lead aircraft here was actually about at this location right here, just north, actually just northeast of Az-Zulfi. So right now it looks like it's flying towards Medina. And if that is the case, it may be trying to make it out towards the area of the Red Sea and then turn north towards Egypt and start even possibly flying all the way into EUCOM to a base like Ramstein or maybe even Vicenza within northern Italy.
Interesting. Yeah, I have a very strong feeling these strikes are right around the corner personally, but we'll have to wait and see.
I have a feeling that they are. Also, by the way, there is a NATO E-3 Sentry up right now, flying towards Cyprus at the moment. We don't really know why, and NATO is not going to be involved in this operation, but that was a fairly interesting thing to note. And we can also see, just to point out any other interesting air movements, Europe is completely empty, interestingly enough. There is absolutely no flights, except for this one French executive flight that took off from Paris just a little while ago and looks to be flying into Germany. So I don't really know what's up with that. That's actually a little bit interesting, to be entirely frank with you all, that there's nothing happening in Europe at the moment. And here in the United States of America, the airspace situation is markedly decreased from prior days, which, except for these, there actually are two more tankers that we can see with transponders active at the moment that are flying towards EUCOM and most likely jumping on in the CENTCOM afterwards. So I would have to be entirely honest with y'all, due to the lack of transponders, which is usually a very telltale sign that something's about to be happening in the future, I would have to say that there is a pretty decent chance at the moment that there might be some sort of air activity happening against Iran, probably within this weekend or the next weekend. Or this might be some sort of a warm-up at the moment this weekend for what might be coming next weekend. It's one or the other.
Yeah, I would say so, probably.
And so with that, folks, we're going to be moving on into some more news that we've gotten out of the area, including some significant developments from major airlines, which have started to make actions and preparations at the moment based on some form of intelligence, or at least some sort of a hunch that they might have, that something's about to be happening soon. The Dutch airline company, KLM, is actually going to be picking up their staff in Daman and Dubai tomorrow and getting them out of the region entirely. We've also been able to hear that Lufthansa, a German airline, has also canceled all flights tomorrow to the Ben Gurion International Airport at Tel Aviv in Israel just for tomorrow, which is a fairly interesting sort of a thing to see because it is going to be taking off from Frankfurt around 11:20 in the I guess you could say middle of the day, close to noon, and it will be landing in Tel Aviv around 4:30 in the afternoon. The flight has been canceled. That does actually not fall within a nighttime attack window, but it is getting incredibly close to the area right before a nighttime attack window. The fact that KLM and Lufthansa are both generally canceling flights and removing staff from the area, along with a great other deal of airlines, which we didn't include on the map tonight, but have also stated that they will be canceling their flights into general airports in the entirety of the Middle East, is giving some people an idea that the airlines may have just been told to cancel their flights due to the high chances that there are going to be attacks being conducted on Iran. And this brings us into the question as to whether or not these airlines have been given some sort of credible information at the highest level that there will be some form of attacks on Iran tomorrow, and for civilian safety reasons, there are to be no flights in or out of the Middle East, so that way any of these airliners might not be accidentally shot down by the Iranians or by our side. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so the big question is this a reliable indicator that strikes are around the corner now that European airlines are canceling flights across the Middle East? The question is, have they been warned with credible intelligence that attacks are coming imminently? And it looks like 58% said yes, the airlines have credible intel of upcoming attacks, while 26% said no, the airlines are simply guessing and playing it safe, and 11% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would say that they likely have credible intel. Something the public does not know is typically the airlines have a working relationship with intelligence agencies within the respective countries in which they're based out of. So if there is some type of intelligence that a country has gotten from one of these airlines, that an airline has gotten from one of these countries, then they would naturally cancel the flights out of an abundance of caution. So I think this is a credible indicator that they have gotten information that strikes are around the corner. Now, of course, the governments are not going to tell the airlines the exact time frame in which the strikes are going to happen. That would be a violation of OPSEC, but they will give them a general time frame that they should be cautious and be weary about because strikes are likely imminent. So I think that's likely the case. I'm with the 58%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd say I would be with the 58% as well. They have been given some form of information that it will not be safe to fly through the Middle East. And I think this is where some people are getting confused about what kind of credible intel the airlines have been given. I think some people get the movie understanding that intel means they've literally had the beans spilled to them, in that we are going to be striking Iran. We're going to hit all of these targets at these times tomorrow with these Air Force units, and all of these people are going to be flying in these exact areas. They're not giving them that sort of level of intelligence or information. What they have told these airlines is that there are going to be activities, military activities, happening over the Middle East tomorrow, and for that reason, it is not safe to conduct commercial flights in the area, so it would be best to cancel those flights for the safety of the passengers, the safety of the crew, the safety of the aircraft, and also for the company's bottom line, because one of those aircraft might get shot down either by Iran or by the United States due to some sort of a misidentification and a friendly fire incident, so do not fly. That's most likely the sort of warning that has been given, at least to these companies, because there is no reason for them to cancel these flights. Everyone has to remember that there's money to be made in flying people around. It's a business. It makes money. So why in the world would airlines like KLM cancel flights into the UAE, which is a massive moneymaker due to the amount of people who fly to the UAE for tourism reasons, and therefore they fly KLM quite a decent amount? Why would they cancel such a lucrative route for no reason at all, with absolutely no tip-off that would be necessary? It wouldn't make any sense for them, and that would piss off a great deal of shareholders in their company unless it was absolutely necessary. Also, why in the world would Lufthansa cancel flights to Tel Aviv, which is also an incredibly common flight path to be seen and a fairly lucrative route for Lufthansa, just because of a hunch? That would make no sense for these companies, because these companies, like any other, operate off of the concept of making money. If you don't operate a company off of the idea of making money, you're not going to be operating a company for long. So canceling flights just out of the blue and canceling on the potential of earning money for no reason at all wouldn't really make any sense. So they probably have been given some form of intelligence or some form of information to let them know that it won't be safe to fly there tomorrow or in the next several days.
And also, what's even crazier than that, they're not just canceling flights to, like, for example, Iran and places like that. They're canceling flights across the entirety of the Middle East. Like, it's the entire thing. I've seen flights being canceled in Saudi Arabia, like we were mentioning, Israel, Iran. I mean, they're canceling flights everywhere. So that seems to indicate, if you believe the idea that the airlines have been tipped off, that seems to indicate that Iran actually intends on carrying out their threat of attacking all these countries that they've been threatening over the past couple of days. They apparently plan on actually carrying that out, or at least out of an abundance of caution, they're canceling all those flights to all these different airports. So that's a bit concerning, but it is expected, though. That's why the aircraft carrier showed up, so that way we could shoot all these all these missiles down that Iran's gonna be firing in all these different countries. So it's good planning. The aircraft carrier showed up, and that's why they've been waiting such a long time, is because it had to get there first.
The analysis was right. Like, we got that right. But anyways, moving on from that and getting on into some other developments in the region, we did get to confirm that right now there are 36 F-15E Strike Eagles of the United States Air Force at the Muwafaq Salti Air Base. This air base is right here on the map. There it is. And this one currently is housing about 36 F-15E Strike Eagles, which is an incredibly large grouping of Strike Eagles, to say the least. I believe that's something about 10% of all the Strike Eagles that the U.S. Air Force has in the whole world are here at this airbase right now. So that's a fairly large grouping. But you've also been able to hear that apparently, and Matthew, get this poll cooking up right now because this one's going to be pretty good. Apparently, we have been able to hear that according to some sources, the United States might strike before the Israelis are ready, as senior officials in the Israeli government are concerned that the President of the United States will launch an initial strike campaign against targets in Iran before losing interest, leaving Israel to deal with the aftermath alone. That's according to defense sources on Mariv Online inside of Israel. So right now there is some sort of a fear or a concern that the President is not going to wait for the Israelis to get ready for any sort of strikes or counterattacks by the Iranians, and is going to just bomb the Iranians first and then hope for the best in the counterattack and hope that the Israeli air defenses aren't overwhelmed, which are in the process of being set up again. It seems at the moment this is actually catching a lot of attention inside of Israel and is starting to cause a little bit of concern. This also comes as the CENTCOM commander, General Brad Cooper, will be arriving in Israel tomorrow, according to Khan News reports inside of Israel. We don't really know why Brad Cooper's going to be in Israel. If there is a strike to happen soon, we would assume that he'd probably be in some other command position elsewhere, as there is no U.S. staff or general staff within Israel at the moment, and those general staff would mostly be somewhere else, highly likely Saudi Arabia, conducting and coordinating the general strategic actions that would be taken against Iran here soon. We have also been able to see that the skies over Israel today were generally devoid of any commercial traffic at all. And even right now, if we take a look at all categories of flights, there are some flights sitting on the tarmac at Tel Aviv, but there are basically no flights coming in or out of Israel at the moment. I do also have to give you all the caveat, though, that the Ben Gurion International Airport is basically the international airport of Israel. There's basically no others. And while there are two smaller ones down here, like the Beersheba Airport and also the Beersheba Nevatim Air Base, the Nevatim Air Base is a military airbase, so it is not used for commercial flights. And for all we know, the Beersheba Airport is more so of a smaller one, not at the level of an international airport like the Ben Gurion inside of Tel Aviv. So it seems at the moment there is some tremors going on in Israel and some greater concerns that the U.S. might not wait for them to be ready. And I gotta say, folks, the irony of that, the Israelis have never waited for us to be ready for anything in the Middle East, and now when we're about to go bomb Iran, now they're complaining that they're not ready. The irony of it. But anyways, beyond that, a lot of people are wondering whether or not the U.S. should sit here and wait on the Israelis, or whether we should attack right now and just wish the Israelis the best. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so should the U.S. wait on the Israelis to get truly ready before they decide to attack Iran? So it looks like 45% said no, the attacks on Iran cannot wait for Israel, while 24% said yes, the U.S. should wait on Israel to get ready, and 24% said it's simply more misdirection. And I'm solidly with the 24%. This is misdirection galore right here. Israel is ready to go. Israel is locked and loaded and ready to defend their country. This is clearly an attempt at misdirection. Israel's been receiving all kinds of systems from the United States over the past week to get ready for this situation. So it's not something that's catching them off guard. They are ready for it. And I don't buy for 1 second that Israel's not ready to protect themselves. They literally stay in a constant state of war in the region. So why would they not be ready? They've been preparing for round 2 of that 12-day war for months. So I don't buy that for a second. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, I don't buy it for a second either. like I'm just being honest. Like, we built the whole thing up just for me to say I don't even believe those statements at all. The Israelis have a doctrine, a lot like the United States, of constant readiness, meaning that they are ready for a full-blown war to happen in the hour, every day, every year. So it would make no sense at all that they would just be completely caught lacking at this point if the Iranians conducted a counterattack on them. That makes no sense, because think about it. Let me remind you all here of this. The Israelis have never even had to spend a minute before they bomb Syria, Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, or anywhere else in the region over the past year. And they have never been scared of any counterattack by the Iranians, because the Iranians have said every single time the Israelis bomb Lebanon, if you bomb our forces in Lebanon again, we're going to attack you. And that has never stopped the Israelis and they bomb them again in Lebanon because they know that if the Iranians fire at them, their air defense is already ready to go for the larger part. And even if the U.S. isn't there yet, they'll be able to hold their own until the U.S. arrives, and Daddy will be able to help them out. So generally, that
I'm
would
sorry,
be
who?
just in the words of the NATO General Secretary, that is, of course.
Oh,
Daddy,
jeez.
Daddy's coming to help them. But anyways, beyond that, like, clearly they're always ready. It wouldn't make any sense for the Israelis not to be ready. I mean, hell, their whole entire thing, folks, recently, is that they keep wars going just so that way they can have a war running. Like, that's what they've been doing over the past year and a half. They've even said that out of their own IDF official statements, is that we would rather have wars going and risk going to war with Iran right now than not having a war going, just for reasons. So why the hell would they have that sort of a mindset, and that sort of a mindset in terms of wartime policy, and then not be ready when that war that they've been ready for a year now is actually about to happen? That would just, it does not logically line up. It doesn't make sense. They are ready. This is another attempt at deception to make the Iranians think that they have a little bit of breathing room when they don't. So with that, I hope we've addressed that well, at least what the Israelis are saying. And now, folks, it's time for us to move on into a couple of more statements from the central government in Tehran really quickly, because we did get to hear. This wasn't from the central government, by the way, but Iran's top prosecutor says that Trump's claim that Iran has halted the execution of 800 protest prisoners is completely false, meaning that Iran's top prosecutor, this is the state's prosecutor, meaning that this is Iran's guy, this is the government's guy in Iran who puts these people to death in the protests, is saying that the president's claim that they halted the executions is a complete lie. This guy would know because he's the one prosecuting them and summarily having them executed. So it appears that, according to some claim at the moment, the president, well, not really a claim, a direct statement by the top prosecutor of Iran, the national prosecutor of the entire Islamic Republic, he is saying that the claim's completely false, and they're still going around and wiping out these 800 people who have been imprisoned for the protests that have been conducted in Iran over the prior weeks.
I wonder what the U.S. president's source of information was when he said that, because I remember him saying that statement that they had apparently canceled the executions inside of Iran, and of course we were highly skeptical of that because it would not make any sense for Iran to like literally halt that. They were literally mowing people down the streets, so why are they going to spare the prisoners when they're literally mowing down people walking down sidewalks? So that didn't make any sense. But the president was saying he got it on good information, and we were never told who that source was. They're keeping that source very secret wherever they heard that from. They said they heard it from one of the best people inside of Iran, at least from what I heard. So we never got that source. I'm beginning to wonder exactly who told him that. If they're saying something different behind the scenes, they're saying in the public, that's obviously something concerning.
I would have to say, I'll be entirely honest with you, I think the source was made up. I don't even think this is something that happened, because why in the world would the Iranians say that when at the same time inside of their own country they were declaring that anyone involved in the protest was an enemy of God to be summarily executed, which is completely contradicting the claim that technically someone made to the president. That wouldn't make any sense, because I mean they're already completely debunking their own claim that they made to the president of the United States by literally within the same day going, these people are an enemy of God, they're going to be executed for it. Killed in the streets is what they actually said. It's like, I don't really think this was even something that the Iranians told them. I think this was just made up. Because I mean, I'm not trying to say that I don't really believe anything the president says, but at the same time, there's been so many statements over the prior year that he just came out and said that had no backing, and nobody ever said that, and nobody even told him that. He just basically came up with it. I'm kind of thinking that this might have just been fabricated as well for the larger part, and then just run with as the official running theme. Although at the same time, we were literally watching people get shot in the streets in Tehran even after that statement was made by the president.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people in the live chat say that the Iranians said that on state TV that they had canceled the executions. I think it might have been reported across some state television sources inside of Iran that they had allegedly stopped the executions, but there was zero evidence provided that I could personally see that they actually halted the execution. So based on what we've heard so far, it sounds like not only did they not halt the executions, but also there was one specific guy who was catching everybody's attention. He was like one of the first people that Iran was planning to execute. We're hearing that he was actually executed that exact same day that they said they had halted them. So I don't think that Iran halted them for a second. I think they actually followed through with it. And all the evidence, including from the prosecutor himself inside of Iran, is indicating they actually did assassinate those people. They eliminated them. And, the U.S. seemed to run with the other idea.
Actually, Matthew, I would say that I believe that that statement was just made up because thinking back about it, there is a good reason to say that that statement was just made up and it was a fabrication. It wasn't even true. It was to take the heat off of the Iranians for a minute while we move forces into the area. Because remember when the president said they stopped the executions, we had basically no forces in the region at all to do anything to Iran. And then after we started to move forces into the area, then that's when it started to change back into, I think we need a regime change in Iran. And then it started to move back to that. I think that's why the statement was made, was to do that kind of deception that we're seeing also with the Abraham Lincoln and the Israeli statements today, which is to make it sound like we were generally moving away from Iran and they weren't going to be a big issue of discussion or action here in America, but in reality they still were. It's just that we were trying to take some of the tensions down a notch so that we could move U.S. forces in the area for at least a minimum of defensive actions if the tensions rise and then the Iranians conduct a preemptive attack.
Maybe so, possibly. But here's another problem, real quick. The last point I'm going to make on this, and we got to move on. We're starting to run a little overtime in this segment. But one other thing as well. Why is the United States so obsessed with making a distinction between the Iranian regime mowing people down the streets versus executing people in a prison? It's like, what's the difference between the two? They're both summary executions. It's not like Iran's giving these people a fair trial. They're simply saying that they are fighting against God, so they're putting them to death. It's like that's obviously not due process. They're just basically putting people to death under the guise that they're getting some type of real procedure to prove that they're guilty of something. So, I mean, they're mowing people in the streets down. They're mowing people down in the prisons. There's no difference. I don't know why the U.S. was making a big deal about the distinction.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And moving on from that, folks, and on into some other news that pertains to the area, I do have to say that one thing that has come out of U.S. foreign policy that I'd actually have to say is pretty decent actually happened today with the British Indian Ocean territory of Diego Garcia, as we were able to hear that apparently the British have backed off of giving away the Chagos Islands, or the Diego Garcia Air Base, to the Mauritians, or the Mauritians. So it looks like we actually did get the British to kind of back off of that. Now, I would say that the roughshooting that the United States has given to Western allies is not anything to be admired at all. As a matter of fact, it's quite destructive. But I will have to say that the British, I would say, my position is that this wasn't too big of a deal, although it definitely wasn't good, because it was a 99-year lease. But at the same time, saying that we're losing an air base that's literally in the very smack dab middle of the Indian Ocean wasn't really a good situation either. So it appears that the British have backed off of that, which is great to hear. And the Chagos Islands will remain under British control, and for that reason, for now, the U.S. will also be allowed to base and operate in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Moving on out of that and on up into Syria, we have been able to hear that the situation in Syria is still getting worse, as the Jilani regime is continuing to release thousands more ISIS prisoners over the course of the day, and we have been able to hear that the situation is getting so bad that the remaining U.S. forces in the area are basically operating as prison shuttle services, transporting the remaining thousands of ISIS prisoners that are still under SDF control out of Syria and across the border into Iraq to be held in prisons inside of northern Iraq to stop them from being released by the Jilani regime and then rejoining the ISIS ranks. Additionally, we have also been able to see that there has been developments near to Al-Hasaka, as we did get to see video footage today showing Jilani's forces getting incredibly close to the outskirts of Al-Hasaka. We saw a column in Al-Hasaka several days ago. It was about 5 or 6 days ago, but apparently they either were destroyed or they turned back. We really don't know which one it is, but now the main bulk of Jilani's force is finally arriving at Al-Hasaka, which we can see here. That's the end of that clip. Very short, but at least giving us a tiny glimpse. We also got to see the SDF's forces advancing through the town of Al-Hasaka, according to Omar Abu Layla, who stated a large SDF convoy, including several tanks and armored vehicles, has moved from Kamishli to southern Hasaka and has been deployed across several axes, while the Syrian army is positioned to the south and east of Hasaka and in the border town of Yarubia, which is an incredibly difficult name to pronounce. Additionally, we also got to see further information about that front line forming, which is giving us an indicator that the SDF is conducting some form of a last stand at this moment around Al-Hasaka, considering that most, if not all, remaining SDF territory has fallen under the control of the Jelani regime within Syria at this point. A lot of people are talking about the situation with the ISIS prisoners and what the U.S. is currently doing right now to try and slow all that down, because it's not a good situation at all. But let me give you all a little bit of a review right now on what's been going on in Syria in pertainment to the ISIS prisoners. As Jelani's forces have advanced across the area of Syria, and actually, I was trying to preamble there, folks, for Matthew to put up a poll. He just put in the chat there was no poll on the topic. So
I actually ended up not running this poll on this topic because honestly, the question's kind of repetitive. I was going to ask everybody what they thought about the U.S. forces trying to move the ISIS prisoners from Syria to Iraq that we're hearing about, but honestly, it's kind of pointless. The question was going to be, has the damage already been done? I think it's pretty obvious. The damage has already been done, so it'd have been a unanimous poll anyway. So I just sort of forgoed it.
Yeah,
went it, I guess you could say.
He forgoed it. Man, like, forgoed.
That poll got smited.
Man, that poll got
Boy,
smoted. Man, what's benevolent me?
I feel like I'm acting like that kid right now. I can't really talk.
Oh man. Anyways, finally, folks, we're going to be moving on out of the Middle East, and we're going to be moving on into some other major news today, which came out of the Western Mediterranean. But before we get on into that, folks, I do have to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had so many of y'all here so far tonight. We've had a peak viewership of 17.4 thousand people at the moment, and currently 16.3 thousand of y'all are still here, and 80,000 people have watched the stream in the first hour. We're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of all of y'all enjoying this channel so far, and if y'all have enjoyed it and you're new, please make sure to subscribe. If you subscribe right now, it'll pay dividends here in the near future, either this weekend or next weekend, or maybe a couple of weekends into the future when the U.S. actually starts to bomb Iran, because we will be going live at the very minute that happens. So please make sure to subscribe now. I will be entirely honest with y'all, with what we're watching in the Middle East, you certainly won't regret it. You'll be getting the most up-to-date information here on the channel, which is very hard to come across on YouTube. So with that in mind, before we get on into our news in the Western Mediterranean, I do want to make sure that we get ourselves a couple of questions from the chat, 3 of them, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the night. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so with that, jumping into our first 3 super chats, our first one goes to Tripod7991, who puts in a very generous $100 support, and that is the largest one of the night so far, and thank you very much, Tripod, for helping to keep the channel running yet again. And Tripod said, hopefully we are going to honor our word to help the Iranian people, and that we give them a proper chance, and it would be a nice plot twist to have really good relations with Iran again, and that would be awesome.
That would be pretty good. I would have to agree. That would be great if we could see that. As far as our strategic situation in the region, it would be ideal to see a American aligned Iran. Not only because it's a fairly large country within the area, there's a decent amount of economic opportunity within Iran that can't really be exploited, if that would be the right word at the moment, because of their government. And also on top of that, it would allow for us to have another large oil producing country, basically the last one that's not in the U.S. security assurance sphere, in the U.S. security assurance sphere, and it would also see that all of the terrorist forces that are the general destabilizers of the area, all Nusra, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, would generally disappear overnight due to a lack of funding and a lack of any material support. However, I will have to say, though, that might all be for naught if we continue to be ignorant and blind to the disaster that's currently evolving in Syria at the moment, because we'll basically just be replacing the Iranians with ISIS, which is just trading one evil for another, so we kind of have to take care of both of them at the same time. But talking about the standalone situation with Iran, if we can actually see a regime change in Iran and see that their government is overthrown and a new one is brought in, that would be an ideal situation for U.S. interests within the area, without a doubt. So a huge thanks to you so much for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And also, Robin Stevens said, so the goal is to exploit Iran? No, that's just a term. Like exploit isn't a negative or positive term. That's just the truth of it. Like, in the United States of America, our wealth and resources of raw materials is exploited on the daily. I mean, look at the Bingham Canyon mine right outside of Salt Lake. They exploit the resources of our copper every day to make money. I mean, it's not a negative or a positive thing. That's just a fact of it. If there's a resource to be had that can be extracted, refined, and sold, you're basically exploiting that resource for profit. That's basically just a rundown of it. That's
Hell,
not
I'm
a
sure the Iranian people would love to be exploited at this point because right now they're being oppressed. So anything's better than what they're currently in. They have no ability to speak out right now without getting mowed down the streets. They can't get hardly any water. They're basically dying of thirst right now. They're having a huge food crisis. They're having an air crisis. They're having a whole government crisis. I mean, they're literally having every crisis possible that you could have. It's like the 12 plagues going on right now. It's really a terrible thing happening in that country. So I'm sure they would just love the situation to change in any regard, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, on top of that, whenever the U.S. arrives in an area for a country, things usually become better for the most part. Now, in some situations, that's not always the case, but generally it is. I mean, if anyone's going to disagree, let me just point out a couple of examples. Germany, Poland, the Baltics, the entirety of the Balkans inside of southeastern Europe, Turkey, most of the Middle Eastern countries that are in our security assurance sphere, Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Taiwan. Let's see, who else? That's basically everybody. I mean, whenever the United States comes in and sees that a new government is brought in, like the fall of Nazi Germany or the fall of any Warsaw Pact nation's government, and then they become a part of our sphere, it's usually to our benefit and also the people's benefit there as well. So, there's no reason to say that this would end up being bad for the Iranian people. I mean, how much worse can it be? There's 30,000 of them dead just about right now from their own government shooting them. So it's not like the U.S. could do any worse than that. I mean, that's just literally as bad as it could get.
Unless the U.S. went in and decapitated the regime and then left a power vacuum and didn't have a plan to follow that up with, and then like a bad group like ISIS tried to jump in the mix, that might turn out bad. But as long as the U.S. plans this out properly and also relies on our partners in the region to sort of make sure that does not happen, then it should go fine if the plan gets carried out the way it is. But hopefully they have a follow-up behind this because you can't just strike and then run off. Like, that's not going to work. You got to make sure that you have security so that way a new governance can actually have a chance to form inside of Iran before they get taken over by potentially a terrorist group.
I would have to agree on that. I mean, that could get worse, but I mean, the U.S. leadership couldn't be that stupid to do something like that. Like that would literally be bottom of the barrel stupidity to completely strip a government clean from a country and then just wander off and not do anything to put in a new government. By some means, at least, even if it was a good way or a bad way, there would have to be some government put in. If we did that and walked off, that would be the stupidest thing I'd ever seen on the face of the planet. No joke, bar none. And, it would be funny, folks, because we would point that out just like we are right now. If that did happen, we'd be like, man, this is stupid. And then some people would be like, the president could cure cancer, and you'd say that's bad. It's like, this is totally different. That would just be a complete and absolute failure of foreign policy. I mean, we almost did that in Iraq. And it turned out badly with us almost doing something like that. Imagine if we just wandered off from Iran after we completely destroyed their government and did nothing to replace it. That would be horrendous. Like, I would have to agree with you. That would be horrendous, probably even worse. But at the same time, they couldn't do something that stupid. I mean, like, that would be unreal.
Honestly, like, I'm not being sarcastic. I don't think they really would do that because while they've messed up in Syria, they didn't do that intentionally. Like, I don't think the U.S. intentionally got the Syria situation to the point it's currently at. They made a big gamble with Jelani, and it turned up not paying off. Jelani's been a disaster. So that one didn't pay off. They tried their best. They tried to gamble on him. Didn't work. But in Iran, I think they're probably not going to do that because Iran is much more consequential. Like, no offense to Syria, but Iran's much more consequential to the region than Syria is. So I'm sure they'd put some more thought into it. And also Israel is definitely going to put thought into it because they've been having their eyes on Iran for a long time. So they're not going to let some group suddenly come in the mix and then start trying to take the government over. Israel would probably simply airstrike whatever group that was and take care of the problem that way.
Also, I saw someone say, I thought the plan was to cripple the regime for the rebels. Well, yeah, but most of the rebels are dead now and in hiding because we didn't really react quick enough, so now we basically have to go in there and do most of the heavy lifting for them because there's not really a lot of them left, at least the ones that are confident enough to be out in the streets and do anything. So the plan has changed because the situation has changed. But anyways, with that, I hope that has addressed that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the next question. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Indeed. And our second super chat goes to Aztec Warrior OG. And thank you very much, Aztec Warrior, for that very generous $50 support and helping to keep the channel running with that support. He said, what are the charges? A man can enjoy his hot and spicy Costco chicken. And may you boys always have a full belly. And take a question from the chat, and long live the LSA.
What are the charges? Enjoying a succulent Middle Eastern news segment? How dare you, sir? And I gotta say, humongous thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to have Costco chickens, we wouldn't be able to keep our lights on, we wouldn't be able to pay our bills, to do this as a full-time job every day. And we're greatly appreciative to the folks like y'all who support us here on the channel through y'all super chats, because nobody has to support the channel at all, yet y'all do, and it helps us to make this thing possible on our end to run the show, and y'all also make it possible for the millions of people who listen to the Enforcer show every month to get their news. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then on into the rest of the news.
You know, honestly, not to rabbit hole real quick, but the Costco chicken is good. But real quick, of course, you go to the likes tab and show the people this Twitter post. I saw this today, and I was like, this one really resonated with me. Really something else. Like the pizza is really life. Like especially Supreme Pizza.
Oh yeah,
this is it right here, right here. This is the penguin. This penguin is all of us right here. This penguin, just waddling off into the wild, distant wonder to go get some very, very luxurious looking Supreme Pizza out there in the distance. Very good stuff. I like this meme a whole lot.
The pizza is with us. God bless the pizza. It's great, wonderful pizza. But I mean, you know, it's really something right there. I'd have to agree. Pizza is pretty good, but Costco chicken is a staple and cheap. It's $5 for that chicken, man. Like, a pizza could never even get close to that level of affordability these days. And for only, folks, a couple of small payments of $3 a month through Klarna, you too can get a pizza. Oh, man. But anyways, enough of that, folks. Enough of that. But beyond that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into the rest of the news.
All right, and the last super chat of the segment goes to Con45, and thank you very much, Con, for that $50 support, and we appreciate that very, very much.
Hey!
Sadly, I will have to abridge it a little bit, though, so that way we don't delve into partisanship, but Con said, guys, I'm an independent. He said Putin is now paying $1 billion from frozen funds to join the new peace committee, that is, that the United States is doing, and Lukashenko, Orban, Kim Jong-un, and this is so messed up. I haven't heard that Kim Jong-un got an invitation. I haven't heard about that. That would be interesting. That would actually go against North Korea's doctrine to join something like that, actually. So that would be quite interesting. But it is fascinating, though. It's very fascinating that Putin wants to join the thing using the frozen assets that the U.S. holds onto, the frozen Russian assets. He wants to use $1 billion of that to join the peace club, which is interesting, to say the least. The whole concept of paying to join a peace club seems kind of like sickening on its face. I'm not really sure how that works, but I guess it is what it is. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say the whole peace committee thing, that's never going to come to fruition. Putin said, I'll join it, but they have to use $1 billion of frozen funds. Basically meaning he's never going to pay to join it because that money is always technically going to be permanently tied up. It's never going to be relinquished for him to use it. The whole thing is that everyone who says that they're joining it right now has no intention of paying to join it, and everyone who says that they're not joining it is not going to join it, and they're also not paying to join it either. The whole thing, like, I gotta say, the whole peace committee thing is the stupidest thing I've heard, because it's literally just for Gaza. Like, if I understand that correctly.
No. It's not just for Gaza. It's apparently it's like a replacement. This is the way I understand it. People may disagree with us. It's not totally clear. It seems to be a replacement for the UN, basically. It's like a pay-to-play UN, a new version of it to replace it. They even have a logo that looks kind of similar to the UN logo, like in this whole thing. So I don't think it's just about Gaza. I think it's like a replacement.
Oh my God, the logo is dog shit. This was made with AI, literally. Like, look at that. The U.S. border is
Yeah.
That is terrible, folks. That is awful.
Yeah, it's also strange to highlight just North America, where the United States is at, considering the fact that this is supposed to be a board of peace consisting of countries from all around the world. So it's weird that we're focusing on ourselves while we're creating a quote-unquote board of peace. That's kind of interesting.
Dude, you can literally tell that this was made in AI. Like, the dimensions of Central America are just completely wrong. Like, Panama is literally a spindle, and Nicaragua is about the size of Texas. Like, everything about this map is wrong. Like, everything. And there's some giant river or something that's going through northern Canada above the Great Lakes. I don't know what that is, because I would say that it's the U.S. border, but the U.S. border doesn't exist with Mexico on this map, or any other country for that matter. So, this is the worst logo I've ever seen. And of course, folks, it's golden. Like I get like I'm not gonna lie, folks. The whole gold thing's getting old. Gold is the gaudiest, ugliest color, in my opinion, that you can use. Silver is a much more regal looking sort of a thing to use for anything, but using any sort of a precious metal for the symbology of some form of a group, I find to be stupid.
Man.
Like just being upfront.
Yeah, it's interesting to say the least. Also, by the way, like I was laughing because it's just so weird that the idea of paying $1 billion to join a peace board or a board of peace is so crazy because peace shouldn't have a price tag on it. Like it's supposed to be something that everybody participates in, and it's just something that we all agree is something for the better of mankind, so we participate in it. That should be the way it is. But I think the U.S. misunderstood when Europe said that Russia doesn't buy into peace. Apparently the president took it literally. He said, "Well, I'm going to make them buy into it." So he said he put $1 billion price tag on buying into peace. It's honestly, I mean, it's wild. It's really crazy to say the least. So I don't understand the concept of paying for it, but. Yeah, I guess if people are willing to pay for it, I guess it seems like a lot of people aren't. I'm hearing a lot of people turning it down actually and walking away. Like I think France was one of them. I think Canada might have turned it down. Actually, Canada had their invitation revoked actually by the United States. So it's just crazy stuff.
Yeah, I would, but this thing is not going to go anywhere, folks. I mean, look at the people who've joined it. Argentina, I think that's Uruguay right there. Then Morocco, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. So basically, like the Middle Eastern Wealth Fund joined the thing, to put it mildly, along with Qatar and I believe Bahrain, and then Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Pakistan. That would be Uzbekistan, if I'm not mistaken, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Belarus, Hungary, Bulgaria, Albania, Kosovo joined it. They're not even like officially recognized by most people in the world, except for the United States and generally the whole of NATO. But they joined it. Vietnam, Pakistan, and then also Indonesia. And those were the countries that joined. I mean, this isn't going to go anywhere. And also on top of that, why in the world does peacekeeping cost $1 billion initiation fee like it's a country club? Isn't peacekeeping worth more than any price? Like the UN was kind of based off of the idea of is that everyone should be united for peace and there should be no barrier for entry. Basically, if you're a recognized country, you're in the UN. It doesn't make any sense.
So it's like
to me.
for the countries that want peace, peace is only for the rich. By the way, if you're broke, you don't get any peace. Like you don't get a seat at the table in this current world order that we have right now. You don't get a seat. You got to have big bucks. You got to be rich. You got to have fat pockets to be in the peace club. Otherwise, you're just out. I guess you're in the conquest club at that point. You're up for grabs.
Yeah, and also on top of that, it's like, what if someone doesn't accept whatever peacekeeping crap that they come up with in this deal? Nothing. Like it's literally just the UN, but it costs $1 billion to join it. There's nothing that you can do enforcement wise on any of these countries that are even a part of it. And it's also like all of these countries that are a part of this right now, except for Pakistan and Pakistan and yeah, that's it. Like none of in Israel, I mean. None of them are going to be going to war with anyone anytime soon because basically none of them are in a position where they're fighting anyone or in an area where they would. So it's like, what type of peace sport is this?
Yeah, it also like Mr. Skills said in the live chat, he says it's like a gated community. It's really like the international gated community. It's like the high-end neighborhood for the billionaires to like join the peace club. It's insane. Like it's just like there's really nothing to say about it beyond that. It's just wild stuff. It is what it is. It appears to be something they're running with. So we'll have to see how it turns out.
Also, I saw someone say, peace costs money. Who's paying for the peacekeepers? Well, in the United Nations, they already have a framework for that, if you don't know, where they have a little pool of money and everyone chips in a couple of million every year to it, including the United States, and then they draw from that fund to pay countries basically to send their army in a UN uniform to go peacekeep somewhere, which basically means that they stand around and witness war crimes and they don't really do anything. So, that already exists. And also on top of that, it's like, so once the initial $1 billion initiation fee from all these countries is run out, is there like a regular membership for that at that point? Like, do you have to pay yearly or what? I don't know. But really something crazy right there. I'd have to say the Board of Peace deal is like it is as big a sham as the UN, in my opinion. Like that's not going to do anything or achieve anything. And it's basically any country who's joining this at the moment and paying $1 billion into it is basically just chucking $1 billion down the drain because I don't see any way this thing is going to have any enforcement power unlike the UN, which also has no enforcement power. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, and we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news, folks. Moving us on over into the area of the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically near to the area of the Balearic Sea, we were able to see video footage published by the French Ministry of Defense of the seizure of Le Grinch. And let me see if I can turn up the audio on that here for a second. There we go. There goes the NH-90 from the French destroyer.
I appreciate them not putting music in this. We get to hear the raw sounds of it.
Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? The French and their demands for excellence, it finally has paid off in a little bit. Dang, man, the Grinch was in some rough seas. Like, dang.
Jeez, man. Saying it was in the perfect storm. That's impressive. The French did this during these conditions. That's really impressive, actually.
Man, the French said, we do not want to board this thing in a bad sea state. However, and then they boarded it in the middle of a typhoon. I mean, that's not too bad of a sea state, but I mean, it's really choppy for sure. And the Grinch is rocking and rolling out there.
They literally have just Grinch written on the side of it. That's a crazy name for a ship.
Also, man, I like how they have a giant arrow on the side that says tug. Like for the tugboat to line up with.
Look how steady that helicopter is. That's some good piloting right there.
Oh, yeah, man. Great helicopter pilots. You see them rappelling onto the deck. These are the French Marines, by the way. Very elite. And off they go. You now see them
no offense, but I think the U.S. tops everybody when it comes to seizing vessels. Like, I think the U.S. has the cool factor down pat.
I'm not gonna lie, man. The French Marines are on up there. I mean, the French Marines are pretty crazy folks, man. Like, if you've heard about what the French Marines have done historically, they're basically like the U.S. Army Rangers, like in what they're capable of doing. They're pretty good. But when you see them getting up to the bridge.
Okay, French Navy, French Navy.
Oh, very polite.
Bro, he came in French Navy, French Navy here. Like,
excuse me, I hope we're not interrupting croissant. Could we please come in? And he said, oh yeah, come on in, come on in.
Bro, he's about to come in and say, basically, the French government believes you are conducting beach activities and we're stopping your ship. Like, it's like, oh man. And now they're commanding the ship into French waters.
How kind of this gentleman to follow this guy's instructions.
Bro, the French guy said, listen, you turn this thing into French waters the easy way or the hard way? Like, the choice is yours. And here comes some more of them. Wait a minute, was he rappelling down with a harbor pilot? Did you see that?
Yeah, I think you might have.
Oh my god, bro. Dude, they said, we're going to have to pick up the harbor pilot and bring him to the ship. It's like, dude, that's actually pretty cool. I would love to be that harbor pilot in that moment. That's pretty neat, to get rappelled onto a detained ship to bring it on in. But also, while that happened yesterday, we also got to see some unusual events that happened today. Two alleged Russian shadow tankers, the Chariot Tide, not the Chariot, and the Progress, have both gone adrift today. And the vessel is declared not under command while transporting 730,000 barrels of Ural crude towards the Suez, with its final destination being China, meaning that, at least according to that information, the Progress is most likely involved in sanctions evasion activities. The second tanker, the Chariot Tide, which is not far from Gibraltar, is also declared not under command and is also adrift as well. We're not really sure if that means that the French Navy is seizing these vessels at the moment or has stopped them to detain them, but it certainly does appear that some very mysterious activities are underway at the moment within the area of the Western Mediterranean. And this is leading a lot of people to wonder what is going on down here in the Mediterranean. The Grinch was seized yesterday. Two other oil tankers, most likely involved in sanctions evasions, have gone adrift today and are technically not under command. What is going on with this, Matthew? What are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so those two vessels, the last time I checked, are listed as not under command, meaning that they don't have navigational abilities. That's at least what we're seeing on public information. So we're waiting on corroboration to prove that is the case. But these two vessels are allegedly involved with Russia somehow. That's the allegation. And they're now drifting at sea, right around the same area that the Grinch was boarded that you just saw in that video a second ago. It's around the exact same area. So what are your thoughts? It looks like 41% said they were likely boarded and probably seized by a state, while 31% said they were likely sabotaged, and 20% said they were likely attacked, and only 10% said the ships are fine, they're probably all good, and it's simply a misunderstanding. And my guess is, since this happened around the same area that the Grinch was boarded, I would think that they probably have been boarded. We probably haven't gotten an announcement of it yet, and that would be my guess. But right now, very little information is out about the situation, and all we know is they're drifting around. We did see that apparently one of the ships had appeared to be Coast Guard vessels around it or rescue vessels near it, so that's a clue. But outside of that, though, we're just not really sure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I'm unsure at the moment. I would have to be with the, well, actually, I would have to say that the option is not up there. I'm actually a little bit unsure at the moment. I'm not really sure what's happened to him yet, but I'm sure we'll get some more information, most likely from the Spanish, considering that I believe one of them is incredibly close to Spanish waters at the moment, and it appears that the other one would be close. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, it also would be close to French waters, because Sardinia is an island of... Wait a minute. No, Sardinia is an island of the Italians. Corsica is the French island. Sorry, correction there, folks. Wait a minute, am I getting that right? Am I... Hold up. Let me go pull this up. France. Let me go type that in. Yeah, I am right. Corsica is French. Sardinia is Italian. So,
I thought that was Romulus.
Romulus and Remus. Oh man! But beyond that, the Italian Coast Guard might go out and check on the other ship that's adrift near to Sardinia at the moment, and we might get some more information in the coming days on that. If they're adrift, if they've been seized by the French Navy, we'll most likely hear about that very soon. So, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I got to stop second guessing myself, folks, because for some reason I thought for a minute that Sardinia was French, not Italian. I don't know why, because Napoleon came from Corsica, and that means that it's a French island. I don't know why in the world I even second-guessed that. But anyways, moving on from that, we are going to be moving on into the Americas for a brief moment. The U.S. apparently heard me yesterday on air say that it was a little bit odd that they hadn't blown up another boat that was alleged to be carrying drugs in a hot minute, because it made it look like it was never about the drug boats. It was really more about the oil, and that was just a good guise for the public to get invested in. So after I made that statement on air, just to spite me, they bombed one out in the Eastern Pacific today, and it looks like it was another shipbox Corolla with about 3 major boat motors on it, and it got hit by a U.S. airstrike, which you're about to see right here.
Oh my God. What was Emperor Palpatine doing standing up at the front of the boat? Is that a guy in a cloak?
I am the Senate. Man, it's like,
Hey, what
not
the hell?
yet.
That guy, honestly, I mean, obviously this guy's no longer. I don't think that was survivable. But Emperor Palpatine was actually kind of baller, standing up there, like able to withstand those winds. He's got some good sea legs, able to withstand that.
Also, by the way, this one, folks, we can generally say is carrying illegal substances. You can literally see them in the middle of the cargo hold right there in a big chunk. So that is some form of cocaine or something else along those lines. And meanwhile, Emperor Palpatine's up there going, "We must find and destroy the Jedi." So we do know that this was generally involved in some form of cartel activities.
Man, honestly, I was thinking, I had the exact same thought when I saw this get hit today. I was like, I don't want to sound deluded, like we're self-absorbed or something, think the world revolves around us. But I was like, that is weird. Like, you didn't mention that. They haven't struck these boats for a long time. Like, ever since the Maduro situation happened, they haven't struck these boats for forever. Like, they just dead stopped striking these boats. Now, all of a sudden, like a few days after we mentioned something about it, all of a sudden they hit another one. It's like, I'm like, that's a little bit strange coincidence. Probably nothing, but a little bit strange.
Man, I literally said, well, I mean, if it really was about the drugs, why did they stop bombing the boats? And then they were like, oh, you're right. Bam. And then they just blew it out. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, what? Anyways. And also, that wouldn't even happen near Venezuela. This was literally near to the Baja Peninsula in Mexico. So a totally different location than the others. But moving on from that, we did also get to hear that the U.S. is planning, or at least weighing the options of a naval blockade on Cuba. Because all the important places in the world right now, Cuba is certainly one of them. It's an impoverished island that has no economy. It's such a minuscule economic amount of activity going on down there that one of their main exports is human organs from organ harvesting, which tells you how bad off they really are. And out of everywhere in the world, though, it'd be important to get locked down and under control. Apparently, Cuba is still being considered as a top priority. I gotta say, that's really silly. I don't know why in the hell we would ever do that. Like, once again, a lot with the Venezuelan situation. This could wait for years, and the situation in several years from now would be the same as it is as today. So I don't really know why the hell that's even being considered as an option, but it is. So moving on from that and on up into the rest of our news, we also saw that there were more air forces on the move today into the Middle East, including these C-17s right here, about 8 of them that were making their way to CENTCOM. We also were able to see, moving us on into our European news, because we finally made it near to the war in Ukraine, there's been some interesting developments in Eastern Europe today. One, Poland is going to be working with our great overlord Palantir to create an anti-drone shield along its border by the latter part of this year. We've also been able to hear, additionally, that the Estonians are going to be creating a universal service regimen within their country for 12 months. So 1 year mandatory conscription will now become law inside of Estonia, as war continues to remain a high likelihood within the region. We've also been able to see that the Russians conducted a flight today through the Baltic Sea with Tu-22 M3 strategic bombers. Boy, y'all should have seen these things when they were first made. The first Tu-22s were busted. I'll actually pull one up for y'all so that way when this video ends, I'll show y'all what these things actually looked like before the refit. Oh, they're ugly. They're terrible. But we can see them here flying over the clouds. This is over the Baltic Sea and international waters from what we know. And we can also see them being escorted by a NATO F-16. Oh, and look, there's a Russian Su-30 also escorting the bomber.
And what type of bombers are these again?
These are Tu-22 M3 backfires.
Interesting. I was trying to check because it looks like Japan scrambled some fighter jets to intercept a Russian Tu-95 and some fighter jets, apparently. So that's a whole different situation.
Yeah, so I want to show you this, though. This is what a... let me see here if I can get a better picture of this somewhere in here. Here we go. This is what a Tu-22 M3 looks like. Y'all want to see what the first iteration of a Tu-22 looked like when it was first put into service? Are you ready for the terror, the cringe that you're about to witness, Matthew?
I'm ready. Oh my God, that's hideous.
Bro, they put the engines up there near to the vertical stabilizer, and what's great about this, folks, is that they didn't account in the original design for engine vibration. So this thing would tear itself apart in midair with all crew members lost, commonly when it was first introduced. Another fun fact about this thing, when it was first put into service, it had an air conditioning system built in that used, I'm not even kidding, folks, straight up vodka as its coolant. So the Russians would just go and siphon out the vodka every time they were about to go flying, and they would never run this thing with the air conditioner on because they had already sucked all the vodka out of the system to go bribe some government official with it later or to use it for their own drinking. So a little bit of fun facts about the original Tu-22 right there, but they refitted all of these in the Tu-22 M3s and have generally created a new design pretty much from the bare bones of the Tu-22, which is the Tu-22 M3, which they still use to this day. Anyways, moving on from that, it's time for us to get on up into the northern part of their country, into Murmansk. Murmansk is a fairly important city for the Russian Federation within the Kola Peninsula, as it houses and operates the Russian Northern Fleet, which is world famous. It truly is. I'm not even kidding. Like, if anyone knows anything about the Russian Navy, they'll know of 3 fleets: the Northern Fleet, the Black Sea Fleet, and the Pacific Fleet. Nobody cares about the Baltic Fleet, but beyond that, this is where it's based out of. Murmansk suffered a critical power outage today. We have no clue why, but 350,000 people in the city are without power, and there's been some sort of a critical power outage failure. You'd see some sort of a fire off in the distance there, which I think might give you an idea of why. But we see them looking around, and the city is pitch black, except for the emergency lights that are on. And also the area of the grid that's unaffected over there. But moving on from that, we also saw in another picture as well, once again, larger areas of the city's grid were out. Most of the city was out. Not really a good situation for them. We do not know why that happened, but we're still trying to see if someone will come forward and tell us why. We also saw the Ukrainians conducted a deep strike attack today at the city of Penza, and were able to catch a Penza oil station on fire. I guess we could call that Pennzoil, the way that thing be cooking. Ow!
Oh, I'll tell you what. That's a long strike too. That's 550 kilometers to strike Penza. So that's a long one there. I don't know what is that in miles, by the way. Because kilometers. What the hell is even a kilometer?
Man, we are American. That's about 500 football fields. Let me measure
Oh
it.
yeah, touchdown. Yeah.
Touchdown, baby. That's about 451 miles.
Oh wow, that's a long strike there. That's impressive.
Kind of. I mean, they did hit. They did hit
I was trying to save it because I was thinking, well, when you see it on a map, it doesn't look that far, but the numbers sounded impressive.
Man, you're like, oh wow, bro, you did that like that FIFA World Peace Trophy. Oh wow. And I was like, it's not really that far. I was like, hell, the Ukrainians are hitting stuff like that on the daily now. But I mean, the oil depot in Penza was hit, and it is on fire, which is a good thing to see. Meanwhile, moving us on, finally, folks. Oh, by the way, before I get into this, I do have to mention the big news that came out of East Asia today. But before I get into that, it does appear that a lot of people are talking at the moment about the Russians continuing their devastating attacks to try and freeze Ukrainian civilians with the power outages. And a lot of people are wondering whether the United States should intervene. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so probably one of the worst exchanges that we've seen in the war so far is happening this year. In fact, it's happening right now. Russia is devastating right now major cities inside of Ukraine, and they're specifically targeting the power infrastructure, which is critical right now because right now it's extremely cold inside of Ukraine and Russia, and the civilians have to have power in order to keep their homes heated, or otherwise they will literally freeze to death. They will literally die in their own apartments because they can't get heating. So should the U.S. intervene now that the situation is escalating? It's the worst it's ever been right now, and Russia keeps doing it day in and day out. In fact, they just did it a couple hours ago again, really badly to Kyiv and many other cities. So should the U.S. intervene? 52% said yes, Russia must be stopped quickly, while 19% said no, the U.S. would be risking World War III, and 20% said only if it affects the NATO alliance. So this one is tricky. When we say intervene, I personally would not support the U.S. getting directly involved in the conflict because that would put us in the middle of, obviously, World War III at that point. So we don't want to quite go that far, but there is stuff that we can do to help Ukraine put a stop to this craziness that Putin's currently carrying out. We can give them the intelligence that they need and also permission they need to use Tomahawks or other weaponry that we can provide to them to strike the targets, the launch sites in which a lot of these drones are being launched from. Zelensky was complaining about that at Davos, and the U.S., with a stroke of a pen or even a mere statement, could give Zelensky the permission he needs to take out those sites. So we don't have to start World War III to solve this. We can simply give them permission, and that will largely start hampering the Russians' ability to strike civilian targets, which will be a huge win for Ukraine and also save a lot of lives. So I'm in favor of that, but not in favor of directly intervening. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. I would be in the idea of supporting but not directly intervening either. That will create a third world war, which might not be the greatest situation. At least for now, we're trying to generally avoid that as long as we possibly can, and also make sure that the fight stays contained inside of Ukraine. So I would have to say that the U.S. should intervene, but not in a way that's going to directly cause World War III, like, say, bombing the Russians or something along those lines. Like, I'm all for, going and conducting military actions against countries like Iran and such, but that's more so of a measured sort of analysis and a measured approach to where we're not risking a full-blown third world war and a nuclear exchange as a direct consequence of any action that we would take. So, that would be my opinion as well. And with that, we are going to be moving on out of that news. We're going to be moving on out here into the Western Pacific, or East Asia, as some people call it. Depends on your perspective. It's East Asia if you're looking at the continent of Asia, but it's the Western Pacific if you're an American. Very confusing. But out here, within these lands, or more so the oceans, actually, out here near to the area of the Marianas Trench is the Northern Mariana Islands. And there are a couple of big ones here, including this one, Saipan. Some of y'all might remember this from American history, because Saipan was a major battlefield between the United States and the Empire of Japan and the USS island hopping campaigns to reach across the Pacific and make it to the Japanese mainland. But just south of Saipan is another important island for US military history, especially during the Second World War, which is Tinian Island. And y'all will notice something a little bit interesting up here. The Tinian Air Base that was at the north part of the island, which was actually used by B-29 superfortresses to conduct the fire bombings on Japan at the latter part of World War II, appears to have been cleared out a little bit at the moment. You can see that they're largely clear-cutting the trees, and it looks like they're actually clearing out some areas for future development. And that is because the Tinian Air Base, which has largely been abandoned generally since the end of the Second World War, is actually going to be getting a second wind now, and will become an incredibly important strategic location for the United States of America, just a little bit north of Guam. This is actually something I'm a huge fan of. We are completely rebuilding the base. Here's the current map and plan of the airfield at the moment from what we know, from what's been issued publicly. But by first accounts, there is going to be around 250 keyholes for aircraft across 5 square miles of Tinian's military lease area. This is going to be the largest U.S. airfield that we have in the entire Indo-Pacific region, bar none. 250 keyholes means that we can actually operate and field 250 aircraft out of Tinian Airfield alone. This is just north of Guam, mind you all, which is next to the Naval Station and Naval Air Station in Guam, along with the U.S. air bases that we have here as well, which are fairly significant, and also the Marine Corps Naval Air Station, which I believe is also here as well. So we are basically going to be turning the Tinian Island and also Guam into a veritable fortress in the middle of the sea, where we will be able to power project significantly. One thing that's very interesting about this, though, is that I think this is going to be more so defensive than offensive, to be entirely honest with y'all, because these keyholes don't really allow for the housing of wildly large aircraft. From what we could tell, these keyholes are only about large enough to house what we would consider to be multi-role tactical level aircraft like F-15s and F-16s. I think that this is more so for defense against possible Chinese attacks on Guam, which is incredibly important for naval operations. So basically this will be a supporting base if a war breaks out where hundreds of aircraft could be airborne within the minute, to be able to defend against overwhelming Chinese attacks by drones or missiles on the island of Guam, and also against Tinian Island itself. So this is a pretty good move in my opinion. I gotta say, this is really prioritizing Indo-Pacific strategic outlooks, and also giving an additional line of defense behind the island barrier chain that we've created against the Chinese, which is a lot closer to their shores than it is to the Northern Mariana Islands and Guam. So pretty cool to see that. I'm really happy about that. But moving on from that and on out of the area of Tinian Island, which I've got to say, folks, if you ever wanted to hear, oh, the enforcer's politically complains about the president, I would say this is pretty good action. Like, generally, if this was an idea, which I gotta be honest, this wasn't really kickstarted by the current president, this has been in the works since about like 2015 or so, like in concept in about 2015. It came into being around like 2022, where this was going to be something that would be worked on in the future, but it's finally being rolled forward now. This is pretty good. Gotta say, great thing to see that the current administration is still carrying on with the initiative of growing our force abilities in Indo-PACOM. China is our largest threat currently by military and economic abilities, and it's very important to match them par for par, nearer to their shores than to our own. So moving on from that and back into Europe, we are now going to be resuming our Ukraine war coverage by going to the front. It's time for us to get on into the front line. Unfortunately, we did see that the combined heat and power plant of Kyiv was hit last night in a strike, which we could see in this clip right here.
And where was this again?
This was in Kyiv.
Oh, damn.
Also, by the way, I want to add this out. Some people were saying earlier that a Kinzhal hypersonic missile hit the thermal power plant. In the beginning of this clip right here, you can literally hear that it's a Shahed drone. Like, here it is again. That's a Shahed. And you can also see that the Ukrainians are still having a very tough time dealing with Russian attacks, because the Russians are attempting to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses, and there's practically little to no support being given to the Ukrainians in terms of air defense capabilities by Europe or the United States. Moving on from that clip, though, I will say this, though. The Europeans are providing far more defense to Ukraine than the United States is in the moment. But it's very disappointing to see the United States isn't working overtime on helping the Ukrainians to at least create a shield over their own skies. We also saw one of the fires created at the thermal power plant here in this clip. And then we also were able to hear further on out of Kyiv, moving on into our location unknowns, some pretty interesting stuff. One, we were able to see that the Ukrainians took a metric ton of Russian prisoners today. I have not seen this many Russian prisoners taken in a minute. We don't know where this was, but it was a fairly significant action. Oh, we're going to mute the happy music that they're playing over this. But
they got that music you play when you're driving down the beach boulevard or something like that in a beach buggy. They're playing that kind of music in this environment. That's kind of wild.
Man, they're playing that I-hee-I-hoo. Man, but anyways, you see them processing the prisoners here. They got about 5 of them, which is pretty decent.
I guess you can call these prisoners processed. They are not organic.
Man, I'd have to say.
Are you GMO certified? Gluten-free?
Man, I gotta say, look at that.
That one guy down there is looking awfully cozy in that jacket. This one right here on the ground, on the knees right there. That guy right there, he's coated up. I'm surprised the Russians give out jackets like that.
Man, give me that jacket, man. But anyways, we also got to see the Russian casualty report as well. And, one Bobcat.
Oh, wow, look at that. They got one.
Oh, wow. And let's see here. I do not see it. One second. I know that Miss DC Keeper of the Records put a report here. It's just that it's not popping up first for some reason. Let me see if I can find it. Unfortunately, for some reason, I cannot find Miss DC Keeper of the Records summary here at the moment on the Kyiv Independent. I know that she put one up. I'm very sure of that. It's just that for some reason it's not popping up over here. But we have been able to see that over the past 24 hours, 1,280 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 3 APCs, 140 supply trucks, 3 main battle tanks, 33 artillery pieces, 449 drones, and 1 Bobcat skid steer. All in all, a pretty good day, and always great to see. Moving us on out of that news, and on into the front lines themselves, we did see in the Kupiansk area that room clearing was still going on, or as we call it, housekeeping was going on in central Kupiansk. Rock music ensues. Oh,
man.
yeah.
I hear that electric guitar come out. I'll tell you what, that's scary.
Man, I can already hear the cease and desists with every note. But we can see the Ukrainians moving.
You shall cease and you shall desist. Oh, wow. They are, wow, look at that.
Man, housekeeping.
I don't think they're housekeeping. I think they're house taking.
I think they might be. I think you're right.
They were lighting up the upstairs. If somebody's up there, they're really getting it.
Now they're running through the park, firing into the windows of the buildings next door, and getting on up close and making sure to do it a little bit closer. Showing the grenade to the camera, popping one in, popping a couple of more rounds into the building, tossing another grenade, hearing the explosion.
Also, Todd said, we are oppressed by copyright laws. Honestly, I thank God for copyright laws, because if it wasn't for that, people would be ripping off our stream like crazy. Like, there's been people that have done that before, and thank goodness for copyright laws. We can put a stop to that. Otherwise, people just rip off our stuff, and we'd be screwed at that point.
Yeah, I mean, really. I mean, there's people, folks, on, like, Twitch and Kick and elsewhere that just literally will rip our whole stream sometimes and just play it like it's their own. It's insane.
Oh, look, here comes the guys out of the smoking rubble.
That was pretty close.
Oh, my God.
And we see them firing into the opening as a drone tried to hit him, and also firing at that drone that appears to have fallen in the midst of him while chucking a grenade at some more Russians in the basement, and continuing to clear it on out. But that's the end of the clip right there, and pretty nice to see. Moving us on further towards the area of Petropavlivka, we also get to see the Russians getting hit out here by the Kara Dog Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, which is the 15th Brigade. You see them lining up their targets.
Paul Campbell said, nobody's ripping off your jokes. Yeah, thankfully, those come with a natural copyright thing. It turns out that copyright wasn't needed because nobody wanted to copy them. It's interesting.
Oh, man, I get no respect around here. I make a ton of jokes on air, and then nobody even repeats them. Oh, man.
They come with a built-in copyright. They're so bad.
Man. I gotta say, I gotta say, folks, the AI slop mills that are going on YouTube these days are unreal. Like, that's another thing that you have to look out for. It's just an AI kind of like skimming your stuff and then just repeating it like it's an original idea from the AI as well. That's a good one. But anyways, moving on from that and on further down the line and into the area of the Sibransky Forest, we did get to see some more Russian prisoners taken. Actually, this guy in particular right here that we have to make note of, who kind of looks like he's about to try and break into the kid's house in Home Alone 1, is actually...
Oh, no. You didn't have to violate him like that. He really does look like him, though.
Man, he looks like that Joe Pesci guy. Like, honestly, man, he's
I
about
don't
to
know about that. I was a little cockeyed, though.
He's about to say, "Look, we're busting in." But anyway, on that, this guy was talking about how he's going to mess up some Ukrainians. But I want to show you all where he is now. He's in Ukrainian hands as a prisoner of war, so I don't really think that one turned out well for him at all. There he is right there. He's the one highlighted in red.
Now he's not home alone. He's homing together.
And then we can see the other guy right over there, and then the third guy here in a second.
What was he doing licking his lips like that? Like, what? Go back and what's wrong with this guy? Like, look, what the hell?
Man, he said, "Ain't nothing like a Didislav party, boy." Man, like,
Man, sitting here like licking his lips or something like that. That's just creepy.
Bro, he's Didislav the Wise, man. Bro, he said, "Why give a man baby oil for a day when he will only Didislav for 1 day? You could teach him how to make baby oil, and he could Didislav for life." But anyways, moving on from that, we also get to see further on down the lines and towards the area of the Kramatorsk front that the Ukrainians were also hitting the Russians here in the 5th Assault Brigade. Whabam. A drone was destroyed. Literally turned into shreds, they say. Let's watch it again. It was that good, we have to see it twice. Kaboom.
This is like Paulie. It's like Paulie from The Sopranos repeating jokes.
Hey Tony, did you hear what I said to that?
Oh man, they said the jokes were so bad they didn't even have a copyright on it. Did you hear that? He said the jokes were so bad they didn't have a copyright.
Let's see. Someone here sat there and said, "Hey, TDS. Well, you might sit there and say that because you don't like my opinion, but tomorrow you're still gonna wake up and have an STD." Hey, Matthew, did you hear what I said to that? Anyways, moving on. We also get to see the Russian forces getting hit as well by near the Konstantinivka area. I had to come up with one off the top of my head, man. That was the best I could do. Take it or leave it.
I'm gonna leave it.
Oh, damn. All right. Well, that's your choice. Free
Left
country.
him behind. He's abandoned.
How much more disrespect can I take?
Betrayal.
Oh, yeah. How much more betrayal can I take? Oh, man. Damn. I get it wrong. Man, I tell you. Well, we also get to see in the Touretsk area that the 100 Mechanized Brigade was also taking out Russian drones. Bam. And another. Here's someone saying that we're propagandists for Mossad and NATO. Oh, boy. Man.
Propagandists from Mossad. Have y'all not heard us? Like, we criticize Israel fairly, like a decent bit.
Have you not heard me? Like, it's in, like, the recent few weeks. This clearly shows that either you don't have a brain or ears, or that you have not been on the channel long enough.
Could it be a combo deal?
Could be a combo wombo.
You
have it set to M for mumbo when you should have it set to W for wombo. But moving on down the line and towards Pokrovsk, we also got to see
or you can set it to the D for Dumbo.
Oh, but also we got to see the 79th Brigade taking out some Russian D-30s.
I always think that's a dozer.
You know, I always feel like that, like a Caterpillar D-30. It kind of has that ring to it, you know. But they're D-30 artillery pieces. There's another one. And that's the end of that clip right there. And moving on from that and down towards Seladove, the Ukrainians were also giving the Russians a little bit of a beating in Seladove today.
Oh, dang. What? Wait a minute. Back that up. Let's see that one more time a little bit.
Bro, this clip was raw chaos.
Oh, jeez. That was a shame.
Bro, this guy went in the now. Bro, it's like, no, you're the idiot, man. You're the one that wide open. Also, here's the aftermath.
сука, летит где-то.
Guy's just hiding.
Right, you don't want no smoke.
Ах, сука,
Oh!
мразота уебала.
Holy cow. Might be time to surrender.
Конкретно хуярят.
Bro, he said that's concrete, baby. Bro, he said that's concrete.
Timber is not concrete. They're using bando.
Oh my lord! But that's by the way, that's the Russian supply base town, basically on the southern front of the Pokrovsk. By the way, that's why it's important, that drone attack, because the Ukrainians are basically hitting their little supply hub on the southern part of the front. We also got to see in Mirnohrad that the Ukrainians of the 79th Air Assault Brigade also stormed some Russian positions. This building is held by the Russians, and these two Ukrainians here are about to take care of that. Here they go.
They're in hot pursuit. This is an actual hot pursuit, unlike that tanker hot pursuit that happened with the one that went across the Atlantic.
Man, a high speeds pursuit that went slower than even O.J. Simpson's. I mean, that is really something right there. That ship was going like maybe 8 knots the whole time. Not a high-speed pursuit by any measure. We also got to see in Novopavlivka that some Russian armor, including a tank and 3 APCs, were also destroyed by the 46th Brigade, which uses the Mandalorian's helmet as their emblem, which is kind of based in a cool way. But we got to see them hit the APC right there, or the AFE, whatever you want to call it. We can see it cooking back there as the tank continues to roll on forward. Let's see. That's a BMP of some sort, and this is a... Oh, this one tried to get out of there, and it did not get out of there in time. Now they're going to finish them off. And now you see them trying to reorganize the trees.
Oh, if you can call these trees more like twigs.
Oh.
Oh, man.
Doubly.
Oh, my.
Or whatever they say. But we can see them also getting another one. And then hovering on around, just making sure to inspect the place. Meanwhile, we can see them now targeting the tank, which is continuing to drive on unknowingly, not even understanding that everyone behind them has already been knocked out. So now they're taking out the T-80. This is actually pretty rare. We don't really see a lot of T-80s in the war anymore. Tanks are, as a matter of fact, exceptionally rare. And it appears that this one's going to be cooked well done, however.
What about that T-90M? You know, that one they were showing off on the TV? Like, where's those at? I hadn't seen one of those yet.
They're basically extinct. Like, that's the rundown of it. We have not seen a T-90M Prevori in a hot minute, like maybe a couple of months. But we can see them continuing to go through and doing pretty effective work on the front, all things considered. Moving on over to the area of Kotliny, we also get to see the Ukrainians blowing up some Russian unmanned guided vehicles. UGVs is what they're called. Or unmanned ground vehicles, actually. That's what it is. It's a UGV, sorry. But we see them blowing this one to smithereens in the 68th Jaegers Brigade. There we go. That's what I was trying to say the whole time, folks. What does benevolent mean? I'm doing that in Russian at this point.
I like how this unit here has the like Welsh coat of arms up there with like the lumberjack honey badger. Like I kind of appreciate that.
Welsh, dude, the Welsh use a dragon, not a bear.
This isn't a bear, man. It's a honey badger.
Well, the Welsh don't use a honey badger either, man. They use a.
Well, they started
dragon.
using it now. I remember I used to be in Wales like way back in the day, like before I was born and stuff like that. I used to be in Wales. I used to hang out there all the time. I think we need to bring back the honey badger. The other thing ain't cutting it.
Wait a minute, you used to be in Wales. Hey, yo. Hold up. What?
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what the hell that means.
I'm just kidding with you, man. I'm just playing with you. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us, folks, to move on up to Kyiv. And this is the big question, folks. I didn't see one earlier, but let me go check. Is there a speech from the president of Ukraine? Because we've actually made it to the end of the news segment. But I've got to go find really quickly, folks, if there even is a speech from the president of Ukraine. So let me go and check really quickly. We're still trying to load up the website at the moment. So please be patient, everyone. Please be patient. There we go. And let me see if there's a speech. Any second now. It's taking a minute, folks. They have very strong DDoS protection on this website.
So also, by the way, while that's going on right there, also it looks like that those tankers. It looks like they went to the edge of Saudi Arabia. This looks like probably where they went. It looks like it's showing a predicted flight path beyond Saudi Arabia at this point, but it looks like they landed probably at the base you were talking about.
Uh, oh, yeah,
That's predictive.
yeah, they're probably going out to Europe at this point, like without a doubt. But let's see here. Oh, well, we do not have a speech from Zelensky. Very unfortunate. But it is time for us, folks, to move on into our second segment of the night, which is the question segment. It's an incredibly fun segment. It's an absolute blast. And we love to get into the question segment because people ask all kinds of brilliant and incredible questions and say all kinds of interesting stuff. And in this segment, we can talk about anything and everything except for religion, politics, climate change, or whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare or not. So if you have an opinion on what political party you like, that's good. It's good just to keep that to yourself as well. If you think that your religion is the greatest, or if you think that religion sucks, that's great, but keep it to yourself. If you think that the A-10's good or bad, keep that to yourself. And if you think climate change is real or not, that's great, but keep it to yourself. Beyond that, though, we've got all kinds of stuff to talk about. Everything else but those. And Matthew, please, take it away. What do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, we will be scanning for more breaking news as we go through our last question segment. But for now, though, it looks like things are largely calm. And also, the time frame, let me get the time in Tehran right now. Let's see here, time in Tehran. I really do need to put like a world clock on the wall. That would be nice. Right now, it's 8:40 a.m. in the morning in Tehran. So the window of strikes is over. If they were going to happen tonight, they would have already happened. So it will not be on Friday, at least. The markets are closed, but it was not tonight. So it might be tomorrow night. It might not be this weekend at all. We're just not totally sure yet, but we'll have to wait and see. But jumping into our first super chat here, this one goes to Chris Feilbach, and Chris puts in a very generous $50 support. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support once again. And we do appreciate that support all the time. And Chris said, with respect to the tomatoes last night, as an American, I have a duty to ignore unjust laws and interpretations thereof. And as such, the tomato is a fruit. Further, this is necessary so I can refer to pineapple pizza as fruit salad to my wife.
And I gotta say, that's very interesting, Chris Feelbach. But at the same time, though, ignoring an unjust law is something that a lot of Americans have a right to, but that might not pan out too well. They're gonna get you for thinking that a tomato's a fruit. I'm telling you, they got your name on the list, and they're coming for you, buddy. They're coming for you. I'm just kidding with you, by the way. But beyond that, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I do have to say that that's only in certain circumstances that a tomato is considered a vegetable, and it's just for importation purposes. Outside of that, though, a tomato is a fruit, even in the United States of America. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. I would have to say, though, that sometimes court rulings just seem a little bizarre. Like, that is one that I would have to say is bizarre. But once you read their opinion on it and why they did that, it actually does make some sense because it's more so for importation and taxing purposes. It's called a vegetable. Because, to explain the whole reason that the case happened, there was this guy who was trying to undercut a whole bunch of people in America who were tomato growers and sellers here in the United States by having them imported because he was undercutting their prices. So the reason why he was able to do that is because he didn't have to pay any excises on a tomato because technically he said it was a fruit. And at the time, vegetables were subject to import excises and tariffs, but fruits weren't. So he was having them imported, but he was having them imported to be accompaniments to salads and such things like that. Basically an accompaniment to other vegetables. So then the tomato grower here in America actually sued the guy, and then the case got brought all the way up to the Supreme Court. This was back in the day, folks, when stuff like that would make it to the Supreme Court. But it came all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they were like, this guy is like screwing us over by undercutting us with foreign imported tomatoes because he's classifying them as a fruit. And this guy was like, well, they are a fruit botanically, so it's a fruit, so I don't have to pay any tariffs or excises on it. And then they were like, yeah, but that's unfair. But the other argument from the other side that was suing him in America said, well, yeah, but that's unfair because the tomato is pretty much an accompaniment in a salad. So basically it's imported as an accompaniment to vegetables, basically meaning that it's pretty much a vegetable for importation reasons. So then the Supreme Court listened to both sides, went through the whole court decision that was had before, and they were like, like, yeah, actually the American people who are suing this other guy who's importing all the tomatoes, they're right. It basically is a vegetable for all purposes rather than its botanical designation, which makes it a fruit. So that's why they ruled for importation purposes, tomatoes are vegetables. Like, once you hear that whole explanation, you're like it technically, botanically, and scientifically is incorrect. But when you hear it that way, it makes sense that they would make that sort of a decision because, nobody's going to the store and going, oh man, I can't wait to have my bananas, pineapples, mangoes, and tomatoes. Like, nobody's putting a tomato in with fruits like that for the most part, like a fruit that you would just eat on its own. A tomato is usually an accompaniment to something else, like, say, some form of a sauce or, as a part of a salad or something like that. So that's why they considered it to be a vegetable for importation reasons. But I do thank you for the support, Chris Spielbach, and helping this channel keep running. And I'm not going to lie, that's probably one of the funniest Supreme Court cases that has ever been decided in this country. No, bar none. It's always an interesting conversation about that case. But still, a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, we wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to have wildly interesting discussions on whether a tomato is a fruit or a vegetable. And everybody knows it's a fruit, but the Supreme Court says that it's not in some circumstances. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to S Static, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much to Static for that support once again. He said, thank you, gentlemen, and give us your DoCon status for the weekend and take one from the chat. And thank you for the kind words, by the way. We do appreciate that. The official DoCon right now, which a big shout out to the Pentagon Pizza Watch, who puts out the DoCon level. DoCon level is 4, meaning there is no current spikes in pizza activity or pizza orders around the Pentagon. So totally normal this evening around the Pentagon. So looks like they are not so hungry tonight. Last night they were very hungry. They were ordering pizza like it was going out of style last night, but today not so much. So DoCon level 4, I think we're okay. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that we're on a fairly low DoCon level right now, kind of because nothing's really happening at the moment, and also we're not getting any pizzas. Now, the Pentagon did report high traffic again today, but that doesn't really mean a lot, in my honest opinion. They kind of fibbed that a good bit from what we know, so that might not really show anything's going on. I'll be entirely honest with y'all, folks. I'm kind of thinking that if anything's going to happen, it's going to be next weekend more so than this one. So I thank you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, really quickly, I was trying to see, folks, if I could find us another interesting case. Let's see. Hold up. Let's see. Huh, that's interesting. Actually, I just found one, Matthew. The United States versus Cosby. Some guy sued the United States military because they were running an Army airfield at the time, and the planes were passing about 70 feet above his farm, and it was terrorizing his chickens. So he sued the U.S. government, saying that he owned all of the airspace above his property, and then the Supreme Court ruled that you don't own an indefinite amount of airspace above your property.
Yeah, I think it's a defined amount. How much airspace?
I think it's 200
do
feet.
You own above your property? Let's see here. So landowners generally own the immediate reaches of airspace above their property, typically extending up to roughly 500 feet in non-congested areas. So interesting. So yeah, it's not very high. It's a strange concept there, at least.
Also, here's my question. So if you build a skyscraper, does that extend 500 feet up from the top of the skyscraper, or does that exist only 500 feet up from the ground? Did it clarify that in that case?
I'm not sure about that. Not totally sure.
Because, I would feel like that wouldn't make sense if it only extended 500 feet off of the ground. This is like if your building is 1,200 feet tall or so, that means that 700 feet of that building is technically within unowned air. It's like it's technically on the property, but at that point it's exceeded the property height technically in altitude. So I wonder on that.
Might have to get FAA approval to go that high if you're building something that high like a skyscraper. I've never built a skyscraper, so I'm not totally familiar with the process, but you probably do have to get some type of permission, I would imagine. Probably a very long process.
Probably an insanely long one with a lot of red tape and regulations. And then what's even crazier, folks, is that after you go through the whole process of filing a form perfectly to the letter of exactly what they ask for, they won't even let you know it's approved, and they won't even mail it back to you. Not that we have any personal experience with that or anything, but, sometimes bureaucrats are kind of not good at their jobs, just being kind of upfront. Some of them are great. Some of them, though, are not. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I see we do have a Welsh viewer in here. When I mentioned Wales, they said they live apparently near Snowdonia. I love that area of
cool.
Wales, by the way. Very nice area. I can't pronounce the name of your home city though. Like I'm not good at the Welsh language. It's very tricky. Like it's probably one of the trickiest language to pronounce words out of if you're not a native speaker. But they put it in the chat there where they live at, which is interesting. I think we might have passed by that when we were visiting there one time. But I love Wales. Like it's a very nice place. We actually have Welsh heritage. That's why we're kind of obsessed with it to a certain degree. So it's very nice place. I like the wilderness part of Wales.
Yeah, we're actually from Wales, folks. If you don't know, our family hails from that area. Generally, our family is basically 90% like our like as far as our genetics go. Matthew and me are both like 90% British, and then the rest of it's Scandinavian. I think it's like 8% Swedish and 2% Norwegian. I think that's like our kind of like our breakdown a little bit, but it's really cool because our family does come from it comes from Wales. It also comes from Devon down here in the kind of the semi-Cornish area of southwestern England. And then there's also a group of them that come up here from Scotland. And then there's also another group that comes from another area of Britain as well. But beyond that, we have to say, really cool to hear that you're from Snowdonia, which is a beautiful place. Let me show you some pictures of it. That's what it looks like. It is that is Conwy Castle, actually, really famous one in the area. But it's a beautiful place. We actually went to this town that's called Bedgillard, which is also a really cool spot as well. But Britain is a beautiful country, wildly beautiful. We've only been over there twice, and for both times it was only about a week or a week and a half each. But it is a wildly beautiful country. Like, every part of it's truly amazing. The one place I'd say, though, that was not truly amazing would be Bristol. Bristol was pretty rough. Everywhere else was really cool, and I really had no complaints at all. I actually know.
What about Liverpool?
No, I forgot, Matthew. The one that's so bad we forgot. Hull.
Oh, Hull. That was Debauchery Central in Hull. Honestly, they have the Wonka, the Willy Wonka Doo-Doo Chocolate River, apparently right in front of the city too. Hull seemed like Hull seemed like their version of like the debauchery levels of Las Vegas, but they didn't have the glamour of Las Vegas. They had it was kind of a little bit on the run down side a little bit. I didn't like Hull. That was probably my most unfavorite place in the country.
And then when we went into the hotel, we heard someone clapping, and it wasn't with their hands. Like I can tell y'all that it was a rough spot. And it's sad because we wanted to stay in York and we couldn't find anywhere to stay in here. York is cool.
You know the most depraved area of the UK is actually Jaywick. Have you seen that?
Jaywick. Let me go pull that up.
It's considered the most depraved spot in the entire part of the country.
Near Clacton-on-Sea, is that the spot that we're talking about here?
Yeah, that's it. It used to have a really big theme park there, but the theme park left, and it left a huge economic vacuum there and ruined the place. Put people in bad poverty because it left. So it's turned really, really bad. I think this might be the nice side of it. You drop down on here.
Yeah, we might be fortunate here. Let's go over here and see what we got down here on Brooklands. I think I've seen this place before in a documentary. I think
there's been videos on it. There's been videos. There's been fellows that have gone here to record the place.
It's your average Brexit geezer. I'll go to my pub. I have my pint. But beyond that, really, really interesting. Actually, I would say that probably.
Wait a minute. Someone said Mao on the live chat said, "Where's Andrew Mountainbatten's new crib?" Also, by the way, Andrew Mountainbatten, that used to be Prince Andrew, but they stripped him of his name, at least according to what I heard, and now they call him by his real name, which is apparently Andrew Mountainbatten Windsor, which doesn't really roll off the tongue quite the same as Prince Andrew. But I'm not sure where he's living. I thought they had kicked him out of somewhere. He's probably got somewhere he's at. I'm not sure where he's really living.
Actually, his full name, I think, is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I just said.
Oh, I thought you said only Mountbatten. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood you there. I'm dreadfully sorry.
Oh,
But
no problem.
and I had to say that in the royal way, by the way. But beyond, like, with the royal accent of King Charles III, who is not living up to the Charles name, because technically a civil war should be going on right now. Whenever a Charles has been in charge of the country, either there's a civil war going on or there's basically like a government overthrow happening, and he has done neither. So I wonder what's coming around the corner. But anyways, I would also actually, folks, there's actually a couple of places now that I'm thinking about that are economically depressed within Britain that we did go through. Bristol is one. Bournemouth is another. Completely forgot about that one until now. Hull is definitely one. I would say that Liverpool is kind of like, it's kind of like in the middle ground. I really don't know if it's really bad off or if it's okay. I couldn't really tell you.
It's not good. It's not good off. I knew a girl that was from Liverpool, and she said it was awful, and she grew up there. She did not like it one bit. Said it was kind of depraved. And considering the fact that she was living in the backwoods of Alabama, where I was living at, that tells you how quite bad it apparently was. So it was not good.
Man, I gotta say, whoever in the world is living in a pool of livers, I just like, I think that might be a rougher place. Or Manchester.
I think the Titanic was out of there, by the way.
Well, it was built in Belfast, but the company, White Star, is based out of Liverpool, so that's why it was, had Liverpool on the back of it. But let's see. What is something else interesting that we could bring up about Wales is pretty cool. Like South Wales is actually pretty neat. We only went to Cardiff and Newport. Yo, it's effing Newport. I brought like the cigarettes, but anyways, we went through Newport and Cardiff. Those were pretty all right, not too bad. Bath was pretty neat. I feel like Bath kind of went a little bit more downhill the last time they went before the next to the first time. Like I don't know how it is now, but that's what we saw of it. And let me think of some. London's really cool, but there are bad parts of London like there are of any city. So, you just have to know where to go and where not to go. But outside of that, Britain's really cool, and Snowdonia is really neat. Love Snowdonia. Let's see here. Where in the world is that Bedgallert town? Also, by the way, when you're up in Britain, Britain looks like a small place, but you wouldn't believe it. It'll take you like 4 hours to drive from Aberystwyth to like Bangor. It takes forever to go anywhere in Britain by car, for some reason. So while it seems small, it's deceptively large because of how long it takes to get anywhere, really. But let me see, and where in the world was that Bedgallert? It's in the mountains up here, and it's at here it is. Here it is. Let me show you this little town. It's really cool. This is it. What a cool little spot.
I like this style of architecture here. It's very reminiscent of the Cotswolds architecture. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I would say it's really cool. Cotswolds architecture is cool, but I feel like the Cotswolds has kind of turned into like British Disneyland. Like the towns are really, really kept up.
It's posh. Like it's like you pay huge bucks. Like all the people that have been like successful in Britain, they want to go live in the Cotswolds. So it's crazy expensive. It's really nice, I will say, but it feels like it's a little too polished. Like it's missing like that like British feel to it. Like they made it a little too posh in the Cotswolds, but it looks really nice. So I like the architecture.
Let's see, this isn't really a Cotswolds town. Malmesbury isn't really it. Let me see if I can find one for y'all to show. They're all kind of
Burton on the Water was a good one.
I'm trying to find them on the map, and for some reason I'm having an issue. Oh, here we are. It's up here, everyone. Sorry. Here's Burton on the Water. Let me find the street, though, that's like the historic street instead of the one where like all the modern residential towns are at. This one will do, I'm sure. This.
Yeah,
like
see?
the Cotswold Stone and everything.
A house that looks like that new in Britain, you're talking some big bucks. That may be something there that Americans look at and they're like, it looks like a townhome or something. Like it could be maybe like 400,000 to 500,000. This thing right here is probably millions of pounds, I'd imagine.
Man, I mean, it probably is. That's probably like 2.1 million pounds. I would put a rough estimate.
I think pretty much like the sliding scale of the cost in Britain. If a house looks like it might be up to standard, like up to modern day, like modern specs, it's probably like millions. If it looks like it's old and nasty, it might be normal priced.
Pull this up, Matthew. Pull up the Harrison Hardy Company. They actually have a billboard here saying that buildings go for a certain price, starting at £575,000. So go pull them up and see if you can find this building here. And let's see how much it costs. Because in Britain, houses are insanely expensive. If y'all think they're expensive in America, they have been highway robbery in Britain for the good part of about 100 years. So, like, go and find that out.
So I'm seeing here, let's see. I don't see that exact one for sale. I think that image was taken a while back on Google here. But just to give you an idea, most of the prices I'm seeing, like in Burton on the Water, here's one for 1.5 million pounds. That's a cottage.
God.
Let's see here. Let's see. I'm trying to find. There's Cheltenham. I don't know where Clarkson's Farm is. I can't keep the city straight where he has his stuff at. He has a bunch of problems with the council in that city too.
Norton.
Apparently. Yeah, that's right. Chipping Norton. That's it. Also, let's see. Here's one, Burton on the Water, 600,000 pounds. But I mean, it looks pretty dilapidated for 600,000 pounds. Also, I don't know what that translates to in dollars, but I think it's a pretty good amount of money there, obviously. But let's see. Trying to get some more price. Let's see. Here's another 600. Oh, there's one actually that's pretty decent looking. It's like a little house that's newer, 600,000 pounds, Burton on the Water. Yeah, but you don't get the square footage like you get in America, but you get the heritage at least.
Yeah, also another thing, folks, that really starts to jack up the prices when you get into the Cotswolds is that the Cotswolds, in Britain by law, is an area of natural beauty, which means that there's a lot of legal restrictions to town expansion within this area. It's really, and most, also, by the way, another thing that's interesting about Britain is that a lot of the buildings are on the heritage list, and depending on what grade they are on the heritage list, there's only a certain amount of things that you can do to the building, modification-wise, until it's no longer approved. If it's a grade 1 listed building, you're basically screwed. Like, if it does not have air conditioning, you are not putting air conditioning in. It won't be allowed. You can't do anything to modify the building basically in any way. You're basically just kind of like buying the right to live in it, but not doing anything to the building at all because it's a historic building and it can't be touched. And there are a lot of grade 1 listed buildings in the Cotswolds. Additionally, nobody can build new buildings in the Cotswolds, at least in any large number, because you have to go through a significant amount of approvals in British high courts to be able to get any approval to build any new buildings in an area of natural beauty like that.
To modify it, like even to modify a building to bring it up to modern day specs, you got to go through that process for that too. Like they're very strict about it. It's like living in an area that has like a massive, like highly regimented like homeowners association, and they are very militant about that. So it's really a pain in the ass to like live there and try to like improve your home. Like it's really terrible. And also you're paying like high dollar to be in there too. So you really lose a lot of freedom buying in that area.
Yeah, you really do. And I mean, like, I get it to a degree because if you allowed everyone to do anything, like, it wouldn't stay the way it is, the way it looks that makes it cool. But also at the same time, it's very restrictive. It's basically living in the homeowners association on steroids at the national level. But I gotta say though, being someone who appreciates historic buildings, I get it that they don't want people just going in and like gutting a building of like its historic 600-year-old interior and replacing it. But at the same time, it's very restrictive, which also is a drawback to the benefit of keeping the buildings historic looking. But then again,
they gotta keep it nice though. Like I do agree. Like they gotta keep it historic because there are like clowns that will move in and to like knock down like a historic building or something, and then they'll build like some modern like architecture and just ruin the heritage of the place. So you gotta have rules, but at the same time though, you always have like the people that get on like HOA boards and stuff like that. They're always the type that want to be the hall monitors in school and stuff like that. They just wanted to like punk people just for the fun of it, and they get on there and they act stupid. Like that's the problem. They go overboard with it and they start acting like clowns when they get there. They have a little taste of power that they've been wanting their whole life, and they start going crazy.
Yeah, and also one other thing is that if like I gotta say, kind of like defending it a little bit, although I know it's hell on earth to live in for anyone who does. If it wasn't for that, the Cotswolds would not be the Cotswolds. It wouldn't be somewhere that's heavily traveled to and considered to be beautiful, because it probably would have been screwed over. Like in America, we don't really have anything like historic registers for buildings or anything like that. So people can come in, and this has happened a lot in America, and they'll go up to a building that's like 300 years old, and they'll just knock the thing down. Like, if y'all want to see something insano, like, I'm going to show y'all something crazy out of Philly. Because there's a street here near Interstate 95, and it's the oldest neighborhood in the United States, and it's only existed by sheer luck because there's really no historic registry that exists for the larger part nationally. This thing finally is protected now, kind of, but not really. And I'm trying to find it here because it's right on Interstate 95. Here it is, Elfrith's Alley. This little street right here is exactly how it was in the 1790s. It's the oldest neighborhood in America, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So, this is the main street outside. You see new buildings and everything. But where these new buildings were little neighborhoods like this one. And this is a traditional neighborhood. All of these buildings are original, and in their original condition from about 1790 or so. Only neighborhood like this in America, as a matter of fact, and it costs a lot of money to live in here. And most of it's actually more so like a historic museum at this point. But that's like, if you didn't have the kind of protections that you had in Britain, like with your grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 heritage listed buildings, you wouldn't really have places like you have, because a corporation probably would have come in, bought up all the property for millions, and then bulldozed everything and built some sort of a large apartment building on top of it. So I mean, I get it to a degree, but there's always a kind of a downside and a trade-off to everything. But I mean, honestly, if I was to be frank with y'all, I would much rather have American cities look like this than what they look like today. I feel like these are just more cozy, more neat, very cultured feeling. You know, like it feels like there's an actual history and a story to the street. When you go out to that main street, though, out here, it's just kind of like anywhere in America at this point. It's kind of very generic looking, you know? But anyways, with that, I hope we've addressed that well. You know, kind of an interesting rabbit hole there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Mark Ead. And thank you very much, Mark, for that $50 support. And he supports the channel all the time. And we do appreciate that very much from Mark, all the way from New Zealand. And Mark said, take one from the chat, fellas. LSA, New Zealand.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support all the way down there from New Zealand. We always got to thank you greatly, Mark Ead, for helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would never be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling day in and day out. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are, of course, going to be moving on and into the next one, but we always got to give a huge shout out to the Lee Spring Army in New Zealand.
Indeed. And also the live chat question in honor of Mark's super chat goes to Ty, who said, did you see the recent Davos meeting and the events that took place as a catalyst or a speed bump to global armed conflict and or the U.S. getting involved in a full-fledged war?
We did see a little bit of what happened in Davos, to be entirely honest with y'all, though. We do this so much every day. Whenever I'm not really working on a show or a video, I try and tune out because, you know, we never get to take a break from this. So, like, staying tuned in all the time would burn both of us out. So I try and tune out.
I stay tuned in all the time, man. I stay on that Twitter all the time and drive myself nuts. I think that's why I'm starting to lose it.
Man, well, that's why you got to tune out. Like, that's why you got to tune out, man. Like, you know, for a couple of hours every day at least, you know, just to be in your own world a little bit. But I did watch a little bit of it, not all of it, though, I will have to say. But I don't think... I like the distancing between Europe and the United States is going to be a very slow and gradual process, and I hope that it's reversible. But that's what I have to say on it. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here goes to none other than Bobby. It is LC39A, and he puts in a $50 support as well. And thank you very much, Bobby, for that support once again. And also, it's good to see you once again in the live chat. And he did not leave a comment, though, but we do appreciate that very, very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so an incredibly massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one. Also, by the way, I see some people saying, "Yeah, I had to like take a break for a little while because it got too stressful." It's interesting. We've gotten somewhat desensitized, which is I don't think that's a good thing, but it kind of comes with like having to cover this all the time because we don't get to show all the footage that we watch and review off the air when we're compiling news and also researching stories and things like that. We obviously can't show them all, and also we wouldn't want to either. We're not trying to traumatize the audience from seeing really horrific things, but it's wild. The war itself, like the Ukraine war, the Iran situation, all that doesn't really stress me out. It's the moment I have to start looking at political posts or anything involving politics at all, and especially stupidity, things like Greenland and stuff like that. That's when it starts freaking me out, like actually messing with me a bit. But outside of that, though, the rest of it is just like, okay, it's just status quo. It's the usual. It's conflict, war, fighting. It happens all the time. But the other stuff, though, like shaking the foundation of who we are as Americans, that's the part that freaks me out personally.
I'd have to agree. It's something that we have to deal with every day. And I'm sorry, folks, that I stutter, because we always have to be careful with how we say things, lest some very sensitive people start bitching their heads off in the chat. I'm just being kind of frank about it. Someone's about to start bitching up a storm here in a minute on what I gotta say. But it's really annoying to have to deal with that these days. And we've been dealing with that for years, but it's getting more and more challenging because it's basically almost impossible to ignore some things. Like in the last administration, we were never happy with how the last administration did most of anything. And it was a lot easier to keep that quiet and really just more so focus on analysis and news more so than anything. But nowadays, it's really hard because it's basically becoming something that's shaking core tenets of what the United States is, which is an incredibly annoying thing and very aggravating, to be entirely honest. So I do have to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and always being here and enjoying the channel. But I completely get that it gets incredibly stressful. It gets very stressful to me when I see that what the United States is basically being shook at its core, like it's something to be played with like a toy. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to none other than Duncan VR once again. And thank you very much, Duncan, all the way down from Australia for that $25 support. He said, Baba move woof. Did someone say pizza? With pineapple on top. It's time for Enforcer to do the voices. Enforcer is the orange man, and Matt is Zelensky. And go Baba. Honestly, I'll tell you, like, I just don't feel like Zelensky. Like, I just don't feel like I have it in me. It's something that you have to think about and learn about. You have to give me the chance to get in the sound. Like, it's just something you have to really work your way into, But what say you?
I gotta be entirely honest with you. I gotta say that we're doing a great thing out here. We're doing a great, wonderful thing. It's never been done as good as we do it. It just never has. People have been going, wow, look at it. It's so nice. It's so great. We're living in Salt Lake City. Great, wonderful place. But I gotta tell you something. There's no place like that in Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't have any cards at all.
I'm not here to play cards.
There we go.
I'm here to play poker, 3-card pickup, anything. I have cards.
He does not have the cards. We have couches. He does not have cards. Very big difference. Couches, cards. Where it's like a game of horseshoe and hand grenades, but instead of throwing horseshoes and hand grenades, we're throwing sly advances at couches and also playing poker. And who would have ever thought that those two things would go together, messing with the couch and playing poker? But beyond that, I also got to say that the Europeans are not carrying their weight. They're very weak. They cannot do a pull-up. As compared to our great Secretary of War, he can do many pull-ups in his imagination. But outside of that, I also have to say that another great thing about Europe is that while we all complain about it here in the U.S. government, at least in a certain group, and talk about how weak and stupid and useless the Europeans are, we sure as hell love to have vacation spots and golf courses and multiple different European countries, because clearly that doesn't say weak like anything else. But beyond that, though, a big thanks to you so much for supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because if it wasn't for amazing supporters like you, we wouldn't be able to keep the Enforcers great. We wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to make the channel even better than it is. And it's all thanks to folks like you. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. It's a wonderful and incredible thing. But before we go, we do have one last thing. Somebody called me up, a little birdie called me up, and they said, Sir, you have to get the Secretary of Health on the air, and we're going to have to do that. Mr. RFK, great, wonderful RFK, what do you have to say for yourself?
We're patching him through, sir. Give him a second. We're putting him on the line.
Wow, what is...
Hello?
Oh my God, he's here.
Who's there? What do you want? Who are you?
It's me, Inflciator, and it's a great thing to have you here. It's a wonderful thing.
Oh, good God. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Good to hear from you, sir. Stop eating all those Big Macs and fries and stop trying to push them on me. Have you ever tried some raccoon that's been hit by a car?
Okay, he's about to lose his job as Secretary of Health, everyone. He's about to have to resign in disgrace.
Actually, I love Big Macs. Make the Big Macs bigger. Bigger Mac.
That's exactly what I like to hear. And that is why, everyone, we're starting the American Health Foundation. It'll require you to eat 3 Big Macs per meal. It will also require you to drink 5 Diet Dr. Cokes per day. Not joking, but this is actually going to happen. And also on top of that, RFK is going to require that each and every one of y'all eats a roadkill raccoon or bear at least twice a week. It's going to be coming around the corner, and it's going to be making America very healthy, very healthy. I mean, just look at RFK. He's a specimen of a man. Listen to him talk, watch him do the pull-ups, and watch him talk about his recreational activities to study in college.
It really is remarkable the way I recovered from that worm. I thought after the worm had its way, I thought it was going to be all over, but it turned out that the worm died on its own. It just went away. So they're calling it a miracle. That's what they're calling it. But it's fascinating the way things work with that. It's like crickets. It's like, you know, when you hear, like, you say something, you think it hits right, and then you just hear a bunch of just like that, a perfect sound effect. Thank you. Crickets are my friend. They're good friends with me. But thank you so much.
His diet is an absolute miracle. Just like me, I ended 8 wars. Actually, it's 9, 12 maybe. But I ended 8 wars. It's truly incredible. And while the Nobel Prize does not matter, I'm not going to stop talking about it. For about the next 5 months, we're going to bring that up every chance we can get. We'll even threaten to blow up an entire alliance over whether or not I got a medal.
This is insanity. I told you I was losing. I said earlier, this might be why I'm losing it. I'm not taking a break. I'm just going nonstop. I'm on this grind 24/7. And I think this is the product of it here.
Wait a minute. Hush. Do you hear that? Oh, Jack. Oh no, he's getting close.
Oh no, not him.
He's getting close. We have to hide, Matthew. We have to hide. If he finds us, he's going to start talking about Scranton. Look, Jack. Oh shit, he's here. Look, Jack, you you're back in Scranton. There used to be this thing, the supermarkets and the stores. You're stacking the spaghetti. The mafia. Look, you gotta understand.
Stop telling how to turn.
Oh, Mike Tyson's here.
I was going to tell you, maybe they'll not put these politicians in charge of what they're doing. Maybe they'll put somebody in charge that maybe had the experience with the toad. That way they know what the universe is about. You can't just walk around not knowing what it's all about.
Look, he talked to the mayor. That's a big deal.
Talk to the mayor. What you going to do about
it? Mike Tyson is a bad dude, and he runs a bunch of bad lefts and rights. And I'll tell you something. Look, are you good, man? Are you all right? Are you the aliens?
I'm fine. I'm fine. What are you doing? I mean, I'm perfectly fine. But really, if you think about it, like, we're really not fine. Like, that's the problem. People walk around all the time saying they're fine, but really they're not. They're not fine. I had to get high. I had to.
Listen, you don't understand. When I sit down,
this is crazy, man. We gotta stop. This is going too far. This is spanning way too many voices.
We gotta do the Nick one, bro. Hold up. We gotta do the one from Nick, bro. Wait a minute. Why can't you fight, Mike? It's final.
Oh no.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Oh man. Oh man. Rip to Holly Vanderfield's here, or whoever his name was. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
And moving into our next one here, this one goes to Mr. Lunchtime, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Mr. Lunchtime, for that support. And also, it's good to see you once again. He said, excellent work, my friends. And please take a spicy question from the chat. And stay toasty, my friends.
And thank you so much for the support. And we will try and stay as toasty as we can. We thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We hope you've enjoyed it greatly. And we always enjoy folks like you helping this channel to keep running and making this thing a reality every day. And so with that, we will get one from the live chat in your honor. What do we got, Matthew?
And also the live chat question goes to James. He said, do you think Iran will do a preemptive strike on Israel?
Nah, I would doubt it for the larger part. So I would generally have to say no. But I do thank you so much for asking that question. And also I thank you for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sisto, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Sisto, as well, for that support. They said, how would other countries like Russia or China feel about a strike on Iran?
Oh, I would say they wouldn't like it. They didn't like it the last time, but there's not really a lot that any of them can do, actually. The best thing that they can do is lodge a diplomatic complaint, but they really have no way to confront us or stop us from doing any actions against Iran. So they wouldn't be happy about it, I can tell you that, but outside of that, there's not really a lot that they can do to act on their unhappiness about the situation. So I hope that does address that well, and a big thanks to you for support, and how about the channel to keep rolling. And we're on to the next one.
And also, we have a 10 from Cachulian343. And thank you very much, Cachulian, for that support. They said, Law of Acquisition 34. Interesting.
The rules of acquisition from the Ferengi Federation?
Oh, is that what he's referring to? I think that's why it's familiar.
I think so,
I think that's the reference to Star Trek, I think. He said, Law of Acquisition 34, war is good for business. Oh, yeah, this is definitely Ferengi. But they said, Law of Acquisition 35, peace is good for business. It's easy to get the two mixed up, and we have a real-life Ferengi running the country.
Yo, like, hey, yo.
Hey, yo. Let's scratch that one, and also let's like, is this live? Is this live?
Oh my God! Rewind the tape. Do another run.
Ferengi.
Oh, bro, that's not what you said the first time. Oh my God. But anyways, beyond that though, I do thank you for the support. And it is hard to get the two, unintertwined from each other. They're right after each other in the rule book. That whole deal is complicated. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'd have to say, very interesting observation there. I think one thing that I can say though about this country is that, folks, there's still hope. There's still hope, everyone. There's still hope. There's always hope. Because if there isn't any hope, then we're lost. It's over. So there's going to be hope for this country. I got to say, foreign policy actions, save for a few that are actually kind of okay, like the Tinian Air Base deal and Diego Garcia, most of the other ones are pretty damn bad. So, hopefully things will start turning around in the future. I don't know when or who will turn it around, but hopefully things will turn around here in the future. Because at least in foreign policy, not speaking on domestic issues, foreign policy is kind of a little rough these days. I don't really think it's coming from like the right mindset. Like, and when I say that, I'm not meaning from like a sick, demented person. I don't think they understand foreign policy, actually. Like, and they also aren't listening to anyone who understands foreign policy. But anyways, a big thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Cachulian343 once again, who puts in another 10, and we do appreciate that. He said, also watching our Middle East policy in Syria is incredibly frustrating. He said he lived through September the 11th and the WOT, and this is decades of work and effort being undone with pen strokes, so many dead for nothing.
Well, I would have to say it's not looking good at all. That's one thing I certainly will agree with it right now in Syria. That's not looking good, and I just don't know why in the hell it's so hard for people in the Congress and in the presidency to understand what is at stake. It's always something, I just gotta say, it's always something to me that they watched. Like, I'm just gonna be straight up with y'all. What we're watching in Syria right now with the rise of ISIS for a second time is exactly what happened in the Obama administration in the early 2010s. Because this same, like, I'm not even kidding, it's literally analogous. Because back then, ISIS started to build up as a force for the first time ever. And the intelligence reports were coming in, and that administration, the Obama administration, had the same response that the current one is having right now to what's going on in Syria. And it's a small deal, not really too big. Maybe a couple of airstrikes will fix it, and it probably won't be that big of a problem. And then it became the largest threat in the Middle East at that time throughout the entirety of the mid-2010s. And we're watching it happen again. It's not even like this is a historical fact that you have to go flipping through some history books to go find out about. The current president lived through that. We all lived through that. I lived through that. Matthew and me are not even that old. We lived through that and remember it. You can literally see the parallels from just 10 years ago happening again. It's like, why in the world does it take them so much up there to watch this stuff happen and react to it accordingly? We already have a clear set example of what we should be doing, which is reacting to this proactively instead of letting people get hurt over here and then reacting reactively instead of proactively. It's just a ridiculous sort of a thing that we're watching, and it really annoys me a great deal because the failings of 10 years ago are happening again, all over again, for the second time over in Syria. But anyways, a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to DWRB, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much for that support as well. They said, what is the history with the A-10 questions? Oh, it's a long history, because, the A-10 is one of those topics that kind of was surprising. People are very militant about that aircraft. So if you dare suggest that it should be retired, you're going to get dogpiled on by a lot of people, because they love the A-10. Apparently, the A-10 has developed a cult following, and we found that out. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, so that's basically the answer, is that at one point it came up on air, the topic about the A-10. I'm of the opinion, and this isn't, by the way, to open up the whole battle royale that's about to happen in the chat, but I'm of the opinion that it's not really relevant in the modern battlefield, and it needs to be replaced with something more competent and advanced, like the F-16 generally, or the F-35. But apparently there is a very staunch group on both sides that either loves the A-10 to the point that they will go to blows over anyone who says that it's not good, and then there's people who hate the A-10 to the point they'll go to blows because they hate the A-10 that badly. So that's why we do not bring that up as an actual point of discussion on the channel. That's also the same thing with the climate change deal as well, is that there is no reasonable discussion. People either believe in it vehemently or they don't vehemently. So then we also had to add that one on as well, because originally it just used to be no religion and no politics, and then we had to add those two on for those reasons. So I hope that does address that well for you, and a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one here goes to Setai Church, who puts in a 5. They said the IRGC cult leader Ali Khamenei, total scam. IRGC is a cult.
I would say the IRGC, well, really the whole Islamic Republic's government is a cult, kind of in a way, a very extremist one. And once again, it's a strong argument against having a religious aligned government, because if you think that your religion, if it's different than Islam, would not turn out the same way if it became an official government, you're sorely mistaken, because there's plenty of historical examples of every religious group finally getting a government that it revolves around their theology, and it always ends up poorly. So I would have to say, really good example. Iran is a great example of why you do not want to have an official religion as a part of your state government, or have the entire national government operate on a state religion. It's a terrible idea. But anyways, a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to George, who puts in a 5. And George said, CIA, hire me fast. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why you'd think we had any leverage in that, unfortunately. But, good, best of luck to you. There is an application process. But Enforcer, what say you?
We'll call up the director. I'm just kidding. Oh, man. Oh, gee. We do know, we don't really know, but we apparently have a former CIA director who watches the show. But I don't know if the current CIA director, who's John Ratcliffe, I don't know if he watches the show. I have a feeling that it's probably not the case that he watches the show. Probably some people in the CIA who are actually working in, like, open source intelligence, they might watch the show, but I don't really think anyone incredibly high up in the CIA is watching the show right now. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support. Sadly, we can't pull those strings, though. That's beyond our abilities and control. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so with that, we are going to be on and into the next one.
And the next one goes to Bad Badger, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Bad Badger, for that support. They said the U.S. military can put a fully staffed and operational Burger King anywhere on the planet in 72 hours. We are wherever we want, when we want. Honestly, that is impressive. We can bring that fast food, that delicious grease, we can bring it anywhere and deploy it very fast. It's just a shame that while we do have operational Burger Kings. Also, can you pull up a picture of that, by the way, the Burger King trailer? It's for morale purposes. Like the idea behind it is, if you give combat soldiers or soldiers that are deployed overseas the ability to have a taste of home, that'll improve their morale, which I think it would. If I was a soldier and I was over in the Middle East, this would probably improve it, because it's probably better than eating MREs all the time or whatever they're cooking. But is that it right there?
This is one of them, but there's also this one as well.
I like that. I like the branded truck trailer one right here.
Yeah,
it just looks so. It looks so American. Like, this is so American right here. Like a military, like mil-spec truck, just a basic run-of-the-mill semi, hauling like a highly marketed, branded Burger King trailer behind it. This is fantastic.
Yeah, man. classic Americana right here, man. Like this is quintessential America, dude. This is like the ice cream barges of World War II in the modern day.
Yeah, it really is, honestly. I wish they'd have picked a better restaurant. Like, I think they could have picked, like, could they have done this? I don't think Chick-fil-A would have agreed to it. They probably wouldn't have. It's probably not consistent with their brand. But, like, could they have gotten us something, like, different than Burger King? It's probably my least favorite place.
I think McDonald's does, like, wait a minute, hang on. The McDonald's don't do the rapidly deployable format? Oh, wait, they do. It's just that they don't have a trailer. They actually, like, set up a little semi-permanent building. So, also Subway does, too.
Interesting.
That's
I don't know,
interesting.
Subway loves to be lurking around. Nobody really wants it, but it's always kind of there. So you
Yeah.
can just kind of have it.
Dude, look, there's people over here getting McDonald's. There's literally nobody in the little Subway building at all. Like,
At the Menace, that Subway is always lurking somewhere. It's like it's like always haunting you in the background. Like if the other food choice is like sold out or too busy or something, Subway's like the haunting Subway is always lurking in the back.
oh my god, dude. Here's someone in the
Oh my
army
God,
making
what
the
are they doing
PowerPoint on the
pointing it
McRib.
Why are they pointing to it like that? Like it's done something.
I don't know, bro. He's like this big. Like, bro, that's like, what did it do to you, man? Why are you so
This
angry?
is the suspect.
Man, honestly, man, the army will do a presentation on anything, man. If you give any of them the chance, they'll make a PowerPoint on it. That's what I've heard from people who've had to deal with being in the army. Is that there's a PowerPoint for everything in the army. Not
Also, real quick, don't mean to interrupt, but James Matthias said, where do they find the folks to work in these trailers? That's a good point because I think they do have to be trained, or at least I think they have to be trained by the restaurant or the company to actually like adhere to their standards. So I don't know if they're using service people to work in those, or they're using actual like civilian employees to go work those. It seems like it would be strange for a civilian to be working at those because these are usually deployed overseas.
Yeah, I wonder, actually. That's a good question. We might have to try and get an answer on that one day as to who in the world mans the Burger King. Also, this picture, by the way, folks, just to let y'all know, because someone's going to be like, what is that? Because it looks like Soviet soldiers with AKs in front of a McDonald's. This is from the set of the original Red Dawn movie. So it's not real. Like, this is from a movie set, just to make that clear. But also, I just saw, Matthew, a super chat come in, and I got a great one-liner for it, Matthew. We got to get that super chat. So read it off for us, Matthew. Read it off.
Is it the one that just came in from Nathan?
Yes, it's that one.
Oh, so Nathan Ringerwall put in a generous $20 support. And thank you very much, Nathan, as well, for supporting the channel. He said, we need a tactical Waffle House trailer.
That's technically the infantry. Man, like, man, you get it because in Waffle House, man, all the workers be throwing hands and getting into a melee. Bro, there is no Waffle House trailer in the army. The infantry is the Waffle House. They're going around slugging it out with everyone in the world.
I feel like Waffle Houses are kind of nice. Like me personally, I'm not a Waffle House person. Me personally, like I've been in one once or twice. The once or twice I've been in one, there was like a lot of smoke in there. I'm not sure if they still allow smoking in the restaurants or not. Didn't they allow smoking, or don't they allow it in there?
Technically, it's illegal to smoke in a building at all. Like that's not like a policy thing. That's the law. You can't smoke in a building. But they allow
It might have been. It might have been maybe someone was smoking outside of the Waffle House, maybe, or something like that. It's like there's always like a smoke smell like outside of it or something like that. I just don't like all that, that like cigarette smoke in the air.
No, that blood was smoking right behind us in the booth. Remember that? And like he was like yelling at his kids and stuff. Remember?
I vaguely.
Man, he was smoking that cigarette right at the table, and nobody was telling him not to. I was like, damn. I was like, man, this is Waffle House right here. But Waffle House is an institution. It really is. Also, so is that Waffle House too violent? They got a reputation. They really do. Look at them. They're dressed up for war in these little Waffle House outfits right here. They will throw down. That is without a question. And
it is pretty cool how you just get the food like that, though. Like if you're brave enough to go to Waffle House, like the food is actually kind of good.
Yeah, the food is actually pretty decent. It's just that you got to be ready to like fight your way in and out in some places. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It's a rough and tumble sort of a place to go eat at. But in some places it's not though. In some places,
punch in Waffle House trailer real quick though, because I'm seeing people say there's actually a Waffle House trailer.
Oh, what?
No way. No way. To go. Waffle House to go.
So it's a catering truck.
Huh. That doesn't seem like that should exist.
This seems unlawful.
Why does it look so janky? Like, I mean, I don't mean to hate on them, but like this truck is real janky looking.
It doesn't look right. It looks like a little looks like one of those like food trucks in LA that's like beaten up and kind of rusty, and then they just like gave it like a once over with this like wrap.
Yeah. Also, is it sagging or is that my imagination? Why does it look like it's sagging into the interior of the truck?
I'm not gonna lie, it kind of does. This thing's kind of rough, really. Let's see. And then what else do we have? Do we have other pictures of this thing? I mean, it just looks wrong. It looks illegal.
I don't know about looking illegal, but it looks a little janky.
No, what I mean by looking illegal, it just looks like it's so wrong, it should be against the law, is what I mean.
Oh, man.
Bro, so
Man,
scared
I
of the
tell you
cease and desist. Bro, like, it's like,
First time it
oh,
looks
no.
illegal, he's probably scaring me to death. He'll think we're going to have the lawyers on us next.
Bro, it's just a figure of speech. It's just a saying. It's sales talk and puffery, yada yada, waffleology. But it is what it is.
That's as a lawn trailer that somebody's converted into a restaurant. That's like what people use to like transport around lawnmowers and weed eaters and stuff like that to go do the lawn.
Man, there's this guy that we know that would ride around on like a lawnmower. But anyways.
He actually got arrested on that lawnmower. It was a zero turn, actually.
Did he get run over by that lawnmower as well?
No, didn't get run over by the lawnmower, but he took it for a stroll down the street and happened to somehow find his way onto a highway on the zero-turn lawnmower. And he just happened to jump a curb and, bust, I think, one of the wheels out. And then the police saw this whole maneuver going on, and then they came over to have a word. And then it turned into a whole mess because it turned out he was a little intoxicated driving a lawnmower down the street, and it turned into be a whole situation.
I've never heard of anyone getting a DUI on a zero-turn mower on a highway. Like that's a new one. That's news. It's not news for us. We both knew that story, but still, have y'all ever heard of that before? Someone getting arrested on a DUI on a zero-turn mower driving down a state highway? No, that's unheard of. Basically, very southeastern shenanigans. But anyways. With that, I hope we have been able to have a fun rabbit hole there about the military's food trucks, or just food trucks in general. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to be a $30 super chat from none other than Marion Deemer. And thank you very much, Marion, for that $30 support. We appreciate that very, very much. And Marion said, our world is in turmoil. Hugs and Slava Ukraine, and here I'm Slava. Honestly, Marion, you are right. Like, I came to that realization the other day. I was having one of those moments the other day where I was kind of like in between working and kind of like taking it easy for like about 30 minutes or so to watch some news on TV or something. And I sat there and I had like this realization. I was like, I'm like, I don't want to be like a defeatist, but I'm like, there's a lot of things wrong in the world today. Like, there's a lot of stuff going wrong, and I hope the trajectory changes because not just geopolitics, but just everything. It seems like everything's broken. It can be fixed. Problems can be solved, but it requires a willingness to solve them. And I'm not sure if that willingness exists, at least right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree with that. It's a tough situation out there in the world these days, and the best way to deal with it is just taking it one day at a time and not letting it get to you, because we're all here for the ride at this point, oh, and it's going to be a ride, I can tell you. So it's best just to sit back and kind of relax a little bit. Even if you hear about it, just be like, well, because at this point, you just gotta wait it out. We all have to wait it out. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And with that, it's time for us to move on and into the next one. Someone just said you can't get a DUI in anything that's not a car. No, you can. You can get a DUI on anything. There's police body cams out there on YouTube of a guy getting arrested for a DUI while riding on a horse. Like, you can get a DUI on basically anything that you have to sit on and ride, for the larger part. So, as long as you're operating it, though, if you're sitting in like a passenger seat or something, no one can do anything. But don't have an open container in your vehicle, even if it's the passenger. No drinking in a vehicle. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
A real moment I had the other day. I was coming back. I told the story a little bit the other day on the stream. I came back from the store and I paid like $120 for like very few groceries, like the basics. I even showed Andrew what I'd gotten. I was like, look, here it is right here. And he was like, what the hell? $120 for that? I was like, yeah. I was like, seriously. And it was nothing crazy. It was just the basics. Now, you know that meme, that Ren and Stimpy meme, like the wake up meme? Pull that up real quick. This is the way I felt. Like, this was a real life like representation of how I felt after I looked at the groceries in the trunk and put them in the fridge. I was like, like, my God. I was like, what the hell's gone wrong? These prices are crazy. I felt just like that. I was looking at the fridge looking just like that, man. I was sitting there just staring at it thinking, $120 for some coffee, some milk, some oranges, and like a little bit of ground beef. What the hell has happened?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, it's just getting bad these days. I went to Walmart, folks, and I just tried to get myself some snacks because for most of our time in HQ 2.0 and 3.0, I basically had like no snacks. It's just been entree food and that's it. So I finally went and tried to get myself some snacks. I got myself maybe 6 snack items. It came out to about $100. I was like, this is just unreal these days, the cost of this stuff. And it wasn't anything crazy, folks. It was like a little bit of chocolate, and like some other stuff like some Cheez-Its and stuff like that. And that all came together, like 7 of those types of items, $100 or so. Like insane amounts of money these days has to be thrown into just getting a bite to eat. How tough is it? It's tough. That's the answer, folks. It's tough. And so with that, I'm not gonna lie, man. Why in the world does this guy kind of look like that? Like picture of that Judge Holden dude. You know what I'm talking about?
Not really sure about that. He looks like that. He looks like the Giga Chad, like when he hits hard times or something, like the economy's in bad times. This looks like this could be Giga Chad when he's just in a like depressed mood.
Why in the world does this look like something from like a 1940s drama?
I don't know. It was really out of place in Ren and Stimpy because Ren and Stimpy's like animation was very like whimsical, and this was very like dark. Like this didn't even match the animation style of the rest of the cartoons that they made.
Like this is what the character looked like literally like 2 seconds before that frame, and then he turned into that. It's like, what the hell?
I feel like this was really personal for somebody.
I mean, honestly, man, it might be because I mean it's very relatable looking though. I mean, in a lot of situations. But anyways, with that, folks, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is a $5 support from TK Lou. And thank you very much, TK, for that support. He said, Moskova scapegoats to meet defenestration or defenestration.
Defenestration?
Yeah.
What's benevolent mean? What's that butterfly? Man, what's that butterfly?
Listen, stop editing the stuff where it looks bad, man.
Okay, here's the unedited version. Damn, he's like real. I'm like, man, he can't speak. Like, bro, it's like they were doing you a solid. But anyways, beyond that though, I do have to say, huge thanks to you for the support. Matthew, you got to reread that one again because I got completely distracted there with our whole little aside.
He said Moskova scapegoats to meet the defenestration.
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. It's not out of the question. We can say that. And so a big thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that does address that, at least the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Make a Mill, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Make a Mill, for that $5 support right there. And I hope you do make a mill. But Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support. And I hope that you do make a mill as well. And a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cachulian343. Once again, he puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Cachulian, for that support. He said, that moment you realize that healthcare is free in Cuba because the organs they sell are coming from somewhere. I didn't know, are we talking about like the church organs or like what type? Because I didn't know it was that lucrative.
We're talking about them bodily organs, like kidneys.
And
livers.
yikes. Oh, my goodness.
You already knew that. We've talked about that on air like 3 times about Cuba.
Yeah, no, I was being facetious.
Oh, he's being facetious, everyone. What's benevolent?
Oh, there you go.
Like,
there you go. It all comes around eventually.
Man, yeah, bro. Man, do not joke about the bell tolling for the bell tolls for thee. But anyways, I gotta say, free healthcare from country to country doesn't really do the deal. You know what I mean? Like free healthcare in say Denmark is very different than free healthcare in Cuba. I think we can all agree on that one. I think it's more so of like a sliding scale because I think in Cuba, what the free healthcare equivalence is like equivalent to is like if you break your leg, like it's like a school nurse giving you an ice pack to deal with your broken leg. While in Denmark, it would probably be like a full scale medical treatment. Very different places on that. But here in America, we have an even better system. We have nationalized healthcare, basically meaning this: you have to have healthcare, but the government also makes sure that you're going to get ripped off every month for it. Yay! That's great.
It's not really nationalized. It's still run by the states, but the federal government subsidized it, or at least they used to a certain degree.
Yeah, kind of. That's kind of how it works. But basically, by law, you have to have healthcare in this country. Otherwise, they just tax you for the amount that you would have paid in healthcare
No,
anyways. What?
they took the teeth out of it. They took that penalty out a long time ago. So you don't get penalized for not having it anymore, to my understanding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they took the teeth out. I think it was during the last term of the current president. I think. Don't quote me on that.
So you're saying that I don't have to pay for healthcare?
I mean, if you want to end up in potentially really financial bad position, don't have to pay for it. But if you want to be smart, you got to pay for it.
That's it, everybody. I'm ending my healthcare. 2 months later, oh God, I've been hit with a $400,000 bill. Oh man, it's great, folks. Yeah, they got to get ripped off in this country every month. Depending on your income bracket, it could be anything. It could be like $70, or it could be a couple of thousand a month. Or if you don't do that, then you could eventually like break your leg or something, and then go to the hospital. And then it costs you like 70 grand. So it's one or the other. Great system though. Really one of the greatest, one of the finest out there, It's a wonderful one. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Sean Ryder, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Sean, as well, for the support. He said, nice work, and I had no idea you were brothers. And yes, we are. We're brothers. He said, I thought it was the same guy playing two people, like the Phil Hendry show, LOL. I'm not familiar with that show, by the way. I'll have to look into it. But well, we're not the same guy. We just sound the same because we're brothers, I guess. And also, we generally agree on most things, but occasionally we'll disagree on something, and it turns into an interesting moment on stream, at least. But we're different people. We're different. But Enforcer, what say you?
And we are different people. We sound very similar, but we are different. Matthew is more monotone. I fluctuate my voice a lot, and my voice is slightly higher pitched than his. And that's kind of the bit of differences there. But we are brothers. That's why we sound similar. That's why we vibe similarly. And that's also why when we disagree, we do it civilly. Instead of some people who come in here when I go, that foreign policy decision isn't good, and then they put in something disingenuous like, why do you hate the president? It's like, who said that? It's like, who said that? Where, when, who said that? Help me find them, because I didn't say that. Who said that? Did you say that? I got to tell you, it's a tough thing, when people think that you're talking to yourself. People think that you're schizophrenic, and we're not. We're literally two different people. We just sound similar. But anyways, with that, a big thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that us addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Clayton Wilkie. And Clayton said, good day, both enforcers. And here's my $5 fine for being late 2 days in a row. Had grandpa nap. Take a question from the chat. Clayton, Brisbane, Australia. Queensland, Australia.
Hey, and a big shout out to Queensland, Australia. And I got to thank you for the support. And it's okay to have a nap here and there. I, too, nap from time to time. Not all the time, but time to time. And I got to thank you, Master, for the support and helping this channel to keep it running all the way down from Australia. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat is going to go to none other than Cedric. He said, is it a good idea to arm the Iranian protesters? Because couldn't that open up a dangerous situation of arming potential terror groups?
Kinda, it could, but generally, though, if they're overthrowing the Iranian government, it's probably not going to be that much of a terrorist group. Because you have to remember, if they're out there like some Syrian groups are going, Allah Akbar, like every minute, like maybe there's some questionability there to giving them some guns because they seem to be some form of a religious zealot. But with the people in Iran, they're generally not religious zealots and they're looking for some form of democratic representation, which generally isn't what would form into a terrorist group in the future. So I would say that this group's fairly reliable to give some guns to. I don't think that they would be that questionable. I mean, it's not like, Osama bin Laden would, like, say, the Mujahideen or, say, the Syrian interim government or the Contras. Or let me think of another one here. Let's see, we didn't give weapons directly to Al-Qaeda. That was more of a Mujahideen thing. But, generally those groups were somewhat questionable because they're zealots. But this group isn't really that form of a zealot. They're more so a zealot for liberty, but no sort of an extremist ideology further than liberty itself. So I hope that has addressed that well, at least in my opinion. And a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and asking an interesting question there as well and sponsoring a live chat. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Clayton Wilkie yet again, who put in a 5. He said, "Good day again. And how many Russians are being taken prisoner per day at this point? And what are the percent between the wounded to the dead per day on the today's rate? And Clayton LSA rules Australia, the United States."
Hey, thank you so much for support. And generally, we don't know how many prisoners are taken per day. There's never a metric put out for that. But in terms of killed and wounded, we usually go with a ratio of 2 to 1. So there's 2 wounded for every 1 dead. So today it would have been roughly about 600 or so wounded and about another 300 dead, just about. But all of those are casualties, meaning that they will not be returned back to military service. And if they are, they're going to be combat ineffective. So I hope that has addressed it the best I can. A huge thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here is going to be a $5 support from RC Minity, who said the Army is fast tracking the production of the MV-75, formerly the Bell V-280, and will be received late 2026-27, and years early, in fact. And thoughts on how that will shape the strategy?
I don't really think it'll be shaping too much of strategy, at least at the moment. It will be shaping doctrine, especially the air cavalry's doctrine of how they fight, because these will be allowing for a lot more rapid transportation of technically rotary borne or kind of like airborne infantry, if you want to call them that. Although technically they're more so air assault infantry, if we want to be exact. But that would be something of a big change for them, is that they would be able to more rapidly deploy over smaller areas, like say several hundred miles from their starting point. But one thing that is going to be weird about that is that if we're talking about an air cavalry unit, their attack helicopters won't be able to keep up, because the Apache can only go so. You know, this is actually something I never thought about until right now, folks. But if the infantry take this thing in, either the Apaches have to take off well before them and try and get there before these even take off, or these are basically going to be dropping off the infantry with absolutely no heliborne support whatsoever from, say, an Apache or anything else. I never thought about that until now, so that might actually start to shape their doctrine, because who in the hell would leave infantry on the ground unsupported for at the opening hour or so of a battle with no even helicopter support for that matter? So I don't know how it's going to be shaping greater strategy, but I know that there's going to be some doctrinal changes to come around for sure, because this thing is going to be far faster than a Black Hawk ever was. So I hope that does address that at least the best I can from what I would be able to say. And a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to it's Dexter, who puts in a $5 support, and thank you very much, Dexter, for that support as well. And he said, let's see here. He said, "Can't America just govern us all? Awesome country. Be warned, governments around the world, that hurting the citizens will make America show up on your shores." You know, I'm a little bit iffy about that, because we show up whenever it's convenient to show up. Like that's the thing. Like. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, we can't be the world police. I mean, there's atrocities that happen all over the place. Like, there's all kinds of atrocities. There's atrocities that y'all may not even know about currently, that's currently taking place in some countries that they keep very, very quiet. In fact, some of them are nuclear armed, and they're committing atrocities that are unspeakable, almost as bad as some of the atrocities you've seen in some of the world wars, that these atrocious things have happened during these time periods. But you won't ever hear about it, because America just doesn't care enough to really talk about it. So you hear about it in some places, like Iran, but you don't hear about it in others. It's very selective. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Enforcer Man on that, because I was just trying to take a moment there to think there are a lot of atrocities going on around the world right now. Let me try and name off a couple of them. Of course, not mentioning this one, but let me go and name off the other ones. Basically, everyone in Southeast Asia, if you're a child, you basically live and work in a 16-hour work week in a sweatshop, which is not ideal. And I would generally say that's a human rights violation, in my opinion. In India and Pakistan, very similar sort of in a situation for most people in most income brackets. In Afghanistan, they basically run an extremist religious ideology. If you don't agree with it, you end up getting tortured or killed. In Turkmenistan, you basically live in the Central Asian version of North Korea. Plenty of human rights violations happen there on the daily, and nobody ever talks about it, and nobody ever will, because Turkmenistan minds its own business, meaning that their massacres are not our problem for the larger part of how we look at it here. Russia conducts endless amounts of atrocities against Ukraine and its own people, and we kind of overlook that officially on the U.S. government level. Iran does that. Let's see, Yemen does that. Syria does that. Let's see who else. To some extent, Israel and Hamas does that to each other a good bit. The folks in Sudan do that to each other. The folks in South Sudan do that to each other. The folks in Nigeria do, in Chad, in Niger, in Mali. Let's see here. Where else? Oh yeah, in Liberia, we can't forget Liberia, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Somalia. Let's see here, in Eritrea. Let's see where else. Oh yeah, in Burma. I forgot to mention there's a civil war going on there. Lots of massacres. In North Korea. Let's see, and then if we go on down into South America, not really any atrocities going on there now, at least from an official government level. They're kind of chilling out these days on that sort of an extent. But outside of that, there's an endless amount of atrocities going on around the world. And the truth of it is that we can only get involved in so many of them. And so we kind of have to decide which ones we're going to get involved in, and it's the ones that will affect America the most. So I'd also have to say I wouldn't want the United States of America controlling everywhere in the world, because either everyone in the world's getting no democratic representation within the U.S. government and they're being administered as an overseas territory, which I would say is largely undemocratic at that scale, or there are a whole bunch of different cultural groups with different interests having democratic representation within the U.S. government. And if you thought that the situation right now is bad, wait until you have a whole bunch of people from, say, Spain, France, Germany, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and elsewhere all voting and having their own representatives and their own senators in the Congress, and then also voting for the president. And then you have a million different interest groups. And then at some level, on the cultural level, some of them are not even going to be compatible with the U.S. democratic system. Like, for example, right now there's a huge crowd of people in the United States that want to see a religious theocracy founded in the United States, which is a ridiculous idea. Well, imagine if you had a large amount of people, say, inside the Middle East that were a part of the United States now, and they also wanted to have their own religious theocracy founded within the United States and have their religious law followed as the law of the Republic. It completely goes against the grain of what is an American ideal. It's against the First Amendment, much like the people in America who are advocating for that right now in a different religious vein. And so I would say, generally, in my opinion, the United States ought to remain the way it is. I don't believe in bringing in any new states or territories. The United States is fine as is. And if there's a problem in another country, we can go in there and help them, the citizens, deal with that atrocity and try and fix it and stop the suffering if it's something that we can actually do. But outside of that, that's up to everyone else in their own other corners of the world to deal with, to some extent. But I do thank you for the support and help of this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $15 support from Crispy. And thank you very much, Crispy, as well, for that support. He did not leave comments on there, but we do appreciate that very, very much and helping to keep the channel running. And we also have a support here that just came in from It's Dexter once again. And he put in another 5 and said, still thankful for America, for the protection of the free world, for the most part, obviously, and wouldn't want to imagine a world without the USA would have been worse. I mean, if the USA sticks to its principles, I wouldn't want to imagine a world without the USA. But we can't lose sight of our principles, though, because if we start becoming a pay-to-play country where it's like everything's transactional, you have to join the club. I mean, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be where we're like upholding democracy. We're trying to spread democracy to everybody that wants it, and we're trying to make sure that the evil forces stay, away, and we're not taken over by them. But it looks like the United States is sort of rethinking those priorities. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree. As long as the United States remains true to its founding revolutionary principles, then we are a country that is a great country to have in the world, and is one that has done a great deal of good, more so than harm, in my opinion. But with how things are going these days, and with a lot of people abandoning the revolutionary ideology that we've held dear in America for about 250 years, it's really hard to say that America, like, even being as patriotic and proud of the country as I am, it's hard to say that sometimes America's actions across the seas are truly in the framework of our founding mindset. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I saw some people in the chat talking about the whole deal with U.S. representation in territories and such things. And I'll say this really quickly, because, of course, I was speaking of it on a religious level. I've just got to say this, folks. Anyone who gets heavily into The United States needs to be a Christian nation, a Muslim nation, or a nation that cannot have any religion. Those are all destructive, because you can look at any country in the world. I can show you plenty of historical examples where a proud lack of religion, atheism, staunch theology, either in Christianity or Islam or any other religion, is destructive. It's like when you get to an extreme like that on what people have to believe in their own heads, that is wildly destructive. The United States is founded on a principle that was unheard of for the large part in its time, and was unheard of until we spread it around the world in the past 80 years, which is to each their own. Whatever you believe, that's your thing. No one else is going to force that on you, and no one else is going to take that ability away from you to believe what you want. That's your own business. And that's something that I don't know why a lot of people want to change, because if you believe how you believe in this country, if you're a Christian, you're most likely a Christian because the government is benevolent enough to not get involved in your internal affairs to tell you whether you're right or wrong. Same thing with Islam, same thing with Judaism, same thing with any other religion in this country, Sikhism, the Latter-day Saints, whatnot. This country has an official policy of you can do what you want, and that's not our business. You want to see where that turns out badly? Iran's a great example of that. You want to see an example to where a lack of religion, state atheism was a bad idea? The Soviet Union, or even the People's Republic of China. Basically, it's the same thing in reverse. The lack of religion becomes a religion in itself. Or better yet, any sort of a staunchly religious government inside of Europe, like a religious theology like the Papacy of Rome, which actually owned a lot of territory before the modern age, that was not really a great thing to live under either. That's why there were schisms that created the Protestant sects. And then you also saw that they then went on to create the Enlightenment philosophies that would allow for freedom of religion. I say that whenever anyone chooses, that's their right. I don't think it's my choice to say whether they're right or wrong. In this country, that's the law as well, is that there should be a freedom of religion, and there should be an expectancy that people can believe whatever they want, whether it aligns with what you think or not, and that's the way it is. It's having a common respect for the individual and saying they can do as they wish. This country allows for it, and that's what allows for me to be who I am. But anyways, with that, we are on and into the next one.
And our next one goes to Chef Danny B, who just came in with a $50 support. And thank you very much, Chef Danny, for that very generous support right there. And we do appreciate that. And he said, "Good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here, and I hope all is well with y'all and the LSA. And I'm thinking about changing the name of my catering company from B's Catering to Ola Snack Bar Catering. And what do y'all think? I think we should run a poll on that." Honestly, Danny, that you might lose business. That might actually make you lose business. I'll be honest with you. That might be I'm not sure about the snack bar idea. I think I like Bees Catering a lot better. I like Bees Catering, but Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, Danny V, I don't think that would be a good name change for business. But I do like the idea, though. I like the spirit behind it. But if you did that, though, you'd have to go around screaming that every day. Like every time someone wanted to dish you something, you'd have to scream that at them loud enough that they dropped the plate and just started running out the building. But beyond that, a huge thanks to you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Rascon. And he said, "Finally able to support. I've been watching the stream since the start of the Russian war. And I remember being late to a date because I was in my car watching it in 2022.
Really? That's actually pretty crazy right there, Riscon. I gotta say thank you so much for being dedicated. I hope that date went well nonetheless, though, or at least there was a follow-up to that. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we're happy to know that you're still with us and enjoying this channel, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep this thing running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And also, someone just said, I believe that religion is the root of 95% of wars. Absolutely not. Like religion plays a part in some wars, but not in a lot of them. Like a lot of people overplay a lot of things. Like as some people be like, every war is over greed or every war is over religion, and say that it's an overwhelming percentage. That's not true. There are a lot of different reasons for wars, millions of them. Sometimes it's for trade, sometimes it's for resources, sometimes it's for land, sometimes it's on pride, sometimes it's on principle, sometimes it is on religion, sometimes it's on ideology. There's a million different reasons for a war to start. Like religion makes up a very small percentage of it if you look at it in realistic senses. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 2 from Talon, and Talon said Pentagon pizza index is normal and no action tonight. And you are correct. It is low tonight, a DOCON of 4, which is pretty low. The lowest is 5. So nothing happening with that. But thank you very much for that support as well. And we also have a 2 from Blizath. And thank you very much, Blizath, for throwing in that usual support right there. And we do appreciate that, as always. And we also have a 2 from Woodsman, who said, on Alaska, Fox Island.
Fox Island in Alaska. Let's take a look at that. Fox Island.
On Alaska.
On Alaska? Huh? On Alaska? What? What do you mean? Like, I'm confused. I don't know what that means.
That's what it's called. It's that the region's called on Alaska.
I don't know why they said that. Like, I don't know why they call it that. It's very confusing, but it looks pretty out here. You know, it's really nice. Alaska is a very nice place. It looks beautiful. I've always heard that the mosquitoes are really bad up here, though, which is shocking to me because it's so far north you wouldn't think mosquitoes would live up here, but apparently they do. And also, right up here is the city of Seward, named after the man who actually got us to buy Alaska, who was then clowned on as a fool after the U.S. bought it, and they called Alaska Seward's Folly, and then we found out that there was oil and gold in Alaska. So the guy kind of, dude, we found out there was oil in Alaska.
Don't give any ideas. Don't give any ideas.
We're reinvading Alaska.
Process. Yep, I tell you, you're gonna give the underdog thought process. You're gonna be like, see, I'm gonna be just like Seward. I'm gonna take Greenland because I'm gonna be just like him. They underestimated the underdog, and they found gold and oil.
Man, they said, look at this idiot. Look at this dude. He bought a bunch of frozen land. And then someone said, hey, there's oil up here. And everyone went, huh? They were like, what? And then they went up there and they went and settled the land. Look at it. And
if they start putting out memes like that, I know they're listening.
Man, you gotta love the penguins, the penguini. Like, man,
there's no penguins in Greenland, by the way. And also, by the way, speaking of us being friends, I don't know if y'all saw that or not, but the U.S. put out a meme of us holding hands with the penguins, and I guess it was Greenland. I'm not really sure where it was. I think it might have been Greenland, even though penguins don't live in Greenland. They were apparently there. I guess that's that illegal migration of penguins we're hearing about. But they were holding hands with the penguins, and they said, oh, they're our friends. But they forgot that they had tariffed the penguins on Penguin Island like 10%, like back in the day. Like they just slapped 10% tariffs on an island that was only inhabited by penguins. So I don't think they want to be our friends anymore. I think they're kind of pissed.
I think they are, actually. I think they probably are pretty pissed. But with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And a huge thanks to y'all once again for allowing us to keep running this channel all the way up there from Fox Island in Alaska. Really cool, actually. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
We also have a 5 from Tusker20, and thank you very much, Tusker, for that support. They said, all right, it's that time again. Rabbit hole. Let's talk about trains. Lock, load, and go.
Lock, load, and go. Trains. You want me to talk about trains? Well, I mean, I could give my best try. I can't do a lot of it, though, because we are starting to run overtime. But
you gotta make this very short.
Matthew does not want it to be long. Like he's making sure it's not gonna be long. Let me think of something here. I actually don't know. Like, there's enough railroading stuff that it's really hard to just come up with something out of the blue, unprompted. Like, you got to give me a specific prompt on that one to come up with something. But big thanks to you, though, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Corium, who put in a 2. It said, views on the Royal Navy's Dragonfire weapon?
It's really cool. I think that's going to be the future of air defense. It's incredibly cheap, wildly effective, and because it's cheap and wildly effective, it's going to be the future. So I would say it's a very good air defense system, and we should see about either developing an analogous system in the United States, which we're already working on, or if that one falls through for some reason, we will make sure to try and get it from the British, hopefully. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope the channel keep on running, and with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 2. And he heard that apparently someone had a little issue doing something there. I can't read that one off, though. But thank you very much, Bruce, for that $2 support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And it is now time, folks, to move on to our live chat questions and grab some of those. And first, we're going to grab our Morse code decoders of the night. We had Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Mason, Joni, Norm, Arabelle, our Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Koberteric, Sire, and Brian. They said the Morse says, Iran is shivering in their timbers with how all this is about to go. And it's not going to be good. LTLSA.
And And that is the sound of money. I got that dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all once again, the Lee Springer Arsenal Corps, for getting that correct time and time again. Truly an amazing and incredible thing to know that y'all are always getting that right and never getting it wrong. Really something impressive right there. And so a humongous shout out to the Lee Springer Arsenal Corps once again. And with that, folks, we are running overtime again. I got to be honest with y'all, folks. These streams run for such a minute these days. Almost all of them run overtime. Some of them by a lot. Like a lot of them are like 30 minutes overtime. And some people have asked, what happens when the stream goes overtime? Technically nothing. It's not like we're a part of like a union or anything, so we get paid like double for overtime. It's just that we want to make sure that we get enough sleep to get up and get going the next day. And if we run streams for way too long, it really throws us off the next day and makes it a pretty tough slog to get through the next day. So that's why we try and schedule these things to only be 3.5 hours long max. So with that, we actually have one last super chat here, and once we get that, we'll be moving on into our 3 live chat questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
So our last super chat goes to It's Dexter once again. He put in a 14 czar, and he said the penguins down in South Africa just as upset. They have Cape Penguin down there in South Africa. That's the type of penguin. They have like these penguins called Cape Penguin or South African penguin, depending on like what term you want to use. But they're confined to the southern African waters. That penguin is not the usual penguin. Like my favorite penguin is the emperor penguin, like the traditional one, like you see in all these photos of like penguins and Antarctica and stuff like that. But these are pretty cool too. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that. The penguins are the penguin. I love penguins. I think penguins are great. I like the emperor penguins, but I also like the little penguins, like the Adele penguins, which are really neat. And I got to say, the South African penguins must be sad, very sad. I would say, very sad. They're crying giant tears. And I got to say, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. And I just saw something, Matthew, before we even get on into our live chats. I have to read this out for everyone here really quickly, because this is something interesting to me. This is something that's political these days, but I'm about to tell you that this just isn't. Someone said the United States Constitution guarantees equal rights for United States citizens, not everyone. Piss off with your virtue signaling bullshit. And by the way, Matthew, get the band hammer ready right there, because I'm gonna have to show you something here. This is what the U.S. Constitution actually says. Let me make sure to paraphrase this. This is Article 3, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, which lays out the powers of the U.S. Supreme Court, which interprets the law and also views cases under U.S. law. Based off of your statement there, it will say nothing about foreign states or citizens of foreign states, but you would be mistaken. As the Supreme Court, the Article 3, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution states, between citizens of the same state lands under grants on different states, and between a state or citizens thereof, and foreign states' citizens or subjects. If a citizen of a foreign country is in the United States of America, they are actually owed the same due process and rights under the law by the Constitution as anyone else. That would make no sense. So basically what you're saying is that if a foreigner shows up here and a U.S. citizen kills them, they can't even be tried for killing that person because they technically had no rights anyways. That wouldn't make any sense. That's a ridiculous sort of a thing right there. I got crazily enough, that's a political opinion that permeates heavily these days, that foreigners have no rights within the United States, even if they're here illegally. But technically, by the law, no matter if you're a citizen of the United States or not, you're subject to the same rights, laws, and customs that everyone else, including citizens in the United States, are privy to. So that's the
Well, they only have due
law.
process rights. It's only due process rights. They don't have full rights.
Well, yeah, but I mean, still, sitting there and saying something like they have no rights at all, which is what that guy said. It's like they do have some rights. It's like obviously they don't have rights to certain things, but at the same time saying that they have absolutely no rights, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't touch that topic. That's very political.
Well, I mean, hell, still there's a constitutional law fact there that they do have some rights. It's ridiculous to say that they have none. I mean, if they have none, you could do anything to a foreigner in this country and it wouldn't be illegal because they have no rights to begin with. They're basically non-humans. So that would be a ridiculous sort of illegal assumption to take. But anyways, with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Grippin Lover, who said, do you think that the reason why Iran is threatening everybody in the area is because they know that the end of the regime is near? So this is kind of like a last stand for them.
It could be like that's probably why they're threatening this badly, so that way they might be able to put enough pressure on other foreign countries in the region, so that way they'll beg the United States to back off and not bomb Iran. That's probably what they're hoping for by this attempt, but I think a lot of people are going to call it in the region for a bluff, or they might not even take it too well. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to none other than, let's see here, Sean Willem, who said, in your opinions, do you think that we need ground forces in Iran to topple the government, or do you think an air campaign will do it?
I think it really depends. I think that you really need a ground force at some level to completely dismantle the Iranian government. It would be ideal that we wouldn't have a large ground force at all and that the revolutionaries could generally handle all of that themselves. But with how things are right now and how little revolutionaries are left, we would generally have to get involved on the ground to see a successful regime change occur. Not a lot, though, but enough to be able to control the situation. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Relaxed Approach, who said, could Shadow Fleet ships be refitted with VLS and other systems like China's container missile ships?
You could. It's that it takes some modification though, and technically the container ships are a war crime because it's basically trying to camouflage a vessel of war as a civilian vessel without any clear identifier that's working for an armed force. So technically, that sort of a ship is a violation of the Geneva Convention. But you could make one. It's just that I don't think the U.S. should start dabbling in that sort of a territory until we go to war with China, and they're doing that, and then and since they broke it, then everyone can break it at that point. That's basically how the rules of war work. And then you can start to convert civilian ships into warships similar to that with VLS cells and such things as that. It's just that it takes a lot to operate a VLS cell, actually, because you have to have certain kinds of sensors, radars, and target acquisition systems to be able to actually operate the missiles. So it would actually pretty much take a warship for the larger part to operate a VLS. So, does the cost outweigh the benefit? Then that's the question we have to get into, and I don't really know if it would. It might just be better to produce normal surface ships like Arleigh Burkes and such in a war, since they have the full complement of arrays, sensors, and weaponry to be able to use all of it appropriately. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for 135,000 people with a peak viewership of 17.4 thousand people. We are always honored and greatly appreciative of all of y'all joining us, and we hope that y'all have had another good night of listening to the news once again. And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. It's going to be a great, wonderful time. We don't know what's going to be happening, but we'll be ready for it, whatever the case. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava. Long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight. We had a whopping 135,000 plus people here by the end of the stream, and we appreciate all of you for joining us. And tonight was a massive viewership. We had a lot of people here during the middle of the stream. What was the number again? What did you say?
17.4 thousand.
Damn, 17.4 thousand. That's crazy. That's wild work right there. We were not expecting that. So we appreciate all of you for joining us once again tonight. And we will be on the lookout, especially this weekend, on high alert for anything happening with Iran. We'll have to see if it is going to happen this weekend. But in the meantime, though, we appreciate you all once again. And we will see you tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next Night of the War News stream, and maybe midday tomorrow for a short war video. And if there is one to make, you'll be hearing me midday with that short war video. But with that, we'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine. Hear 'em, Slava. Get some rest, and good night.